The guy standing in the middle of the hall was named Tsukuru. Sumeragi, he was given the position of cook, rank G. The man standing next to him, apparently an auctioneer, asked the people around him to place bids, but suddenly there were cries that it was a waste of time, and no one was going to pay for it. It was a labor lesson, everyone was trying to cook something, but a handsome guy with blonde hair stood out in the middle of the class, cooking something delicious. The admiring glances of his classmates were riveted on him, and it was not Tsukuru. Tsukuru Sumeragi was a thin guy with dark hair and bright eyes full of enthusiasm. When he cooked, he was completely immersed in the process. Today's menu included 3 kinds of sandwiches: chicken fillet braised in wine, vegetable pate, potato salad and boiled vegetables, French onion soup. The boy sighed in frustration. It wasn't the first time he spent a lot of time and effort on cooking, but got no reaction from those around him. Suddenly, his classmate caught his attention. "What a beauty," he thought to himself. The girl's name was Ichinos. She ran up to him and complimented him on his skills, and our hero was very embarrassed when he heard the compliment addressed to him. At this point, Ichinose laughed sheepishly, saying that she was clumsy and that the boys had asked her not to interfere. The young man couldn't believe that Ichinose was talking to him. At this point, the teacher said that he would go out into the staff room for a moment and warned them to be careful with fire. While Ichinose was admiring the dishes the youth had prepared, he had a strange feeling that something was about to happen. Suddenly there was a rumble, a noise, as if an earthquake had started. Everyone in the class, frightened, began to scream. A moment later, all the guys found themselves in a room with very high ceilings. Everyone looked at each other in surprise and fear, not understanding where they were. 3 figures appeared at the head of the hall, and the students themselves were surrounded by knights. The man in charge introduced himself as a representative of the Alliance of Kingdoms and called the boys heroes, explaining that they had been summoned to their world through a special ritual. Then the blonde-haired guy exclaimed, "What's going on here?" To which he was told that they would now begin to test their abilities in order to determine which kingdom each of those present would belong to. Abilities were tested using a plate that had to be touched with a hand. The plate, in turn, gave information about the profession and rank. Who would get whom, it was decided to determine with the help of an auction. Then the heroes would be delivered to one of the 9 kingdoms that were part of the alliance, or to one of the 6 countries. In total, there were 15 places to live. The hero's task was to destroy the demon kings living in these states. Suzono Ichinose was asked to touch the plate. The plate determined Job, Saint, rank S. The starting price for Ichinose was 5 million, and immediately there were voices offering between 10 and 40 million. Then they asked me to come up and put my hand on Tsukuru's plate. Sumeragi. The plate identified his profession, chef, rank G. Unfortunately, or fortunately, no one showed interest in Tsukuru. No one wanted to spend time and pay for it, and everyone indignantly asked to move on to the next lot. The guy couldn't understand what he did wrong. Then the auctioneer turned to Tsukuru and informed him that from that moment on he was left to his own devices. He gave the boy some money and a sword, saying that it was compensation and that it should last for a while. He also added that they could not return him to his world, and after he left the gate, he would be transported to a random region. The young man couldn't understand why in a random region. It was obvious from the auctioneer that it was hard for him to talk about it. Soon Tsukuru himself realized none of the kingdoms wanted to accept him. Suddenly Ichinos shouted his name. Several pairs of hands tried to grab her and stop her, not letting her get close to Tsukuru. The young man said her name in surprise and turned to face her. Sumeragi remembered that Ichinose was bought by the Luke Sandel kingdom, and trying to speak in a calm voice to calm her down, he promised that they could meet one day. Ichinose said with a happy smile, "See you?" and asked him to say the same. Sumeragi approached the gate with a tense look and was about to cross the threshold, when suddenly the auctioneer pushed him and he began to fall somewhere into the abyss. Trying to stop with his feet, the young man fell to the ground, finding himself in the forest. The auctioneer tricked the guy. He ended up not in a random region, but in a forest called Borf. On the ground nearby, Sumeragi found a status plate. This is the data it gave out when he touched it. Name, male. Occupation, chef of the first level. Skills, cooking. Arson, cutting. Detailed appraisal, material storage. Stats: Strength G, Intelligence C, Agility G, Dexterity EX, Lucky X. Sumeragi placed the status plate on the tree. The plate analyzed it and gave out the tree's data. A large tree, several thousand years old, grows inside the Borf Forest, a mysterious place where there is no sign of humans. The brunette began to think about his next steps, thinking that he could at least use his skills to make a fire and distinguish edible plants from poisonous ones. He decided that, first of all, he needed to find food and water, and in the meantime he would look around where he was. While looking around for food, Tsukuru found mushrooms. He realized that they were a type of mushroom called shiromaru, which were incredibly delicious when fried. Knowing that he was in the forest, mushrooms and berries were the easiest to find. He put them in storage so that they would not spoil and so that he could use them at any time. While wondering how he hadn't stumbled upon the monsters yet, a rustling sound was heard at that very moment. The young man, alert, pulled out his sword. It turned out to be just a rat. The boy's eyes filled with tears, and he began to sob out of despair, bitterly thinking that those people knew that his profession was not combat, but still sent him to this forest. He angrily threw away his sword and shouted that he would take revenge on them all as soon as he got out of this forest. Suddenly, Sumeragi heard a rustling sound in the bushes. Turning around, he thought it was a cat, but he was very wrong. The animal had huge claws, and it was 3 or even 4 times bigger than the brunette. The huge creature began to chase him, and poor Tsukuru, screaming, ran away from it as fast as he could. Here he remembered the sword, which he had hastily thrown away. While he was running, he tried to find something that could help him, but there were only berries and mushrooms in his bag. Suddenly the little animal struck the young man with all its might. He flew away, breaking tree branches around him. The predator jumped up next to him and bent down, and the boy thought, "Am I really going to die like this?" All he could think about was that he had to take revenge on the old man and everyone else, that he had to teach them a lesson, and that he wasn't going to die. He decided that he absolutely had to defeat him. All the while, he kept repeating one word: arson. And finally it happened! The monstrous creature caught fire, and at that moment it pressed Sumeragi's head to the ground with its paw. The brunette realized that the monster wanted to destroy him to stop his skill. Thinking that more can do it, he croaked, "Cutting up." And at that very moment, the creature was torn to pieces. While Tsukuru was lying down, pop-up windows began to appear in front of his eyes with notifications about leveling up, as well as about obtaining the skill Spring Water. The young man lay all wounded and bleeding. The trees and sky flickered before his eyes. Trying rise, he bent over from pain and lost consciousness. When he came to, his whole body ached, but he was alive. Before he lost consciousness, he remembered something and said with bewilderment, as if asking himself, "Spring water." Unknown where appeared Bubbles water. The bubbles flew up to the boy. He opened his mouth and drank. At the same moment, information about healing food surfaced. A steak from the rib of a cat-like monster, very tasty, with the property of healing wounds. Somehow turning from his back to his stomach, Sumeragi began to crawl towards the steak. Groaning, he crawled to his food and took a bite. If it weren't for his current state, he might have even praised the steak, as it was incredibly delicious. Having swallowed the last piece, the brunette began to feel better, and all the wounds that were on his body began to heal. Finally, Tsukuru was able to sit up, and with great relief, he realized that he had recovered. Looking at the sky, a spark of hope arose in his soul that he would be able to get out of this forest. The young man peered out from behind the bushes, watching a huge skeletal monster. It was a sword reaper, level 200. The lucky guy who survived all the trials decided that there was nothing more important than to have a snack. Since yesterday he was too injured to enjoy the taste, he decided to do it today. As usual, a window with the cooking skill popped up. "We fry meat from the ribs of a large cat. Like monster, do you want to get the skill, night vision?" Then a window popped up with a notification that the night vision skill had been learned. Sumeragi asked himself in surprise where the cooking had such an effect from, and then it dawned on him that the effect depends on what part of the meat he uses the cooking skill on. So if he eats a steak from the rump of a large cat-like monster, he will get the skill of sensing presence, and if he eats a steak from the thigh of the same monster, he will get the skill of agility, and if he eats fried meat, he will get acceleration. Now the brunette realized that the more he ate, the stronger he would become. The next monster was Bognon, level 240. Here, Sukuru ate a steak from the belly of a wild monkey and received the skill of wood magic. The young man's thoughts were only about food, because if he continued to eat the meat of wild animals, he would become strong enough to take revenge on those old men who dragged him into this forest. Next on the menu was a steak from a dark bat, which gave the skill of air magic. By the way, level volatile mice was level 260. A pack of hyenas was already ready to attack the guy. Sumeragi was very tense, because each hygiene was level 150. The brunette climbed higher up the tree, called for spring water, and doused the flock. He couldn't kill them all, because even if he came down and fought them, there were too many of them. With a loud growl, the huge black bear, in one fell swoop, grabbed the hyena with its huge mouth. Sukuru watched this whole scene in a daze, waiting for what would happen next. The bear continued to devour its prey. A window immediately appeared. It was a level 210 hell bear. It was huge. A second later, the bear sensed the presence of another prey. With a roar and great speed, the bear hit the tree, so that the young man, unable to hold on, began to fall down, screaming in horror. A little more, and the guy was already almost in the bear's mouth. Sumeragi did not lose his head and called for spring water, pouring it over and thus distracting the bear. The brunette fell to the ground. Before the bear could attack, Sukuru used tree magic, and with the help of the tree branches, he tied up the bear. Now he could attack it. The young man began to use throwing magic, but after trying it once and then a second time, the magic did not work. The bear did not lie still either, and began to break free from the branches. Another second, and the bear was free. At that very moment, the bear attacked the guy with its entire body, and Sumeragi flew into the air like a doll. The bear, without wasting time, pierced the brunette's stomach with its huge paw. The poor guy thought, have I really suffered again? And inside, the feeling of revenge only flared up. Sukuru wanted all of them, those who sent him to this damned forest. To feel the pain that he felt, he still wanted revenge. The only thing the young man didn't want was to die in this forest, and he decided to try one last time and said, cut up. Wounded and covered in blood, the boy lay with the remains of pieces of a bear. Sumeragi earned a lot of levels, and he realized that it was not necessary to shout the name of the skill to activate it. The brunette decided to be more careful, despite the fact that he could heal, since it was very dangerous. At the same time, he ate the bear, receiving skills for it. Here is what he ate and what he received. Bear shoulder steak, superhuman strength skill, fried bear brisket, strength skill, rump steak, iron hand skill, fried bear paw, physical strength skill. While he was eating, another monster snuck up on him. Sukuru wasn't even surprised anymore. And again, the same battle took place in a circle, just like the previous one, and again the completely wounded young man lay in a pool of blood, asking himself only one question: why does he always get into such dangerous situations? The guy lay there, ate, whined, and thought about how he wished he could win easier no matter how high his level was. All his skills were only suitable for close combat, which led to a pool of blood, huge wounds, and a lot of energy and effort. Sumeragi finally thought, a skill that would help him in long-range combat. A window popped up with a notification about receiving the title of pervert, and then the explanation that this title is given to those people who do not even think to cover up. No wonder all the things on the brunette's body were torn, after all the fights that he went through. Sukuru froze in confusion and anger. He even sweated from the title bestowed upon him, now his status plate displayed. Name, young man, profession chef, level 205. Skills cooking arson, cutting detailed assessment, material storage, spring water healing, food tool repair, ingredient detection, night vision, acceleration throwing, sense of presence, improved sense of smell, animal instinct, collaboration, teamwork, whisper, inhuman strength, fortress, iron hands, wood magic, wind magic, shadow shackles, dark magic. Stat strength A, intelligence, a dexterity, agility, EX luck, EX title, pervert. 30 days, 8 hours, 30 minutes passed since the guy got into the forest. He became stronger, defeated many monsters such as Sand Battleship LVL 270, Wooden Doll LVL 160, Soul Eater LVL 170, and also received additional skills. But he could not get out. There were no things left on him, except for a hip bandage. How lonely Sumeragi was. He thought to himself how good it would be if there was at least some kind of living creature nearby, like slugs or fluffy creatures that accompany the main character. He just endlessly walked through the forest like a primitive man. He wanted the most ordinary human comfort. He wanted a soft bed. He wanted to talk to at least someone. He wanted hugs. And he wanted ordinary clothes. It would be much easier for him to endure all this. Suddenly, something distracted his attention from his thoughts. The brunette had seen this monster several times before. Usually he hid from it, but not this time. Tsukuru attacked the monster, but he used the movement technique, and then the monster attacked the young man with the shadow shackles technique. Sasparan managed to repel the attacks. The Sword Reaper was about to escape, but it was not to be. Sumeragi used wood magic to grab the Reaper, then used ignition magic and presence magic. For himself, he concluded that every time the Sword Reaper used movement magic, he teleported about 150 meters. The Sword Reaper continued to burn, and the brunette knew that it would burn until he canceled the ignite skill, so escaping was not an option for him. Suddenly, the Reaper attacked Tsukuru from above and struck his sword right next to his head. At the same moment, the youth said cut. Finally, the guy got clothes, and not just any clothes, but a hermit's cloak. While the wearer of this cloak was invisible to monsters of a lower level, this cloak did not tear, did not get dirty, and protected from all types of magic. Now he could say goodbye to the title of pervert. Approaching the Reaper's sword and thinking to himself that he was on the verge of death again, he grabbed the sword and tried to pull it out of the ground. But as soon as he touched the sword, the entire sword was engulfed in lightning, and it was pushed away. Sumeragi didn't let him touch the sword. Suddenly a voice came from the sword, asking the brunette if he was a warrior. Tsukuru remained standing in a daze, not understanding what was happening. The young man sat on the bank of the river. At the moment, he had quite good skills. He was level 210, but his status remained the same, pervert. He used the produce skill to make himself something to eat, and suddenly a voice came out and said, "Cool." The guy sighed with a little disappointment and thought that he would never have believed that he would talk to a sword, and the sword meanwhile continued to admire Sumeragi and say that he had never heard of such cooks as the brunette. Remembering the recent events that happened to Tsukuru, and this sword that he got from the Reaper he defeated, the sword asked him if he was a warrior. It had a task for the young man, and if this sword sees that he has the necessary strength, the sword will allow him to use all of its power. The sword asked the boy if he believed in God. Sumeragi chuckled. The brunette said that all this was so ridiculous, and the sword continued to insist, asking whether he believed in God or not. Tsukuru answered that he did, and that he had been forced to believe in God for only a month so strongly that he was already tired of it. Sword didn't understand him. Then Tsukuru explained that he never believed in saints or God until he came here, and he probably would never have believed that God existed. But he was suddenly summoned. He didn't have a chance to reject it. He was used and thrown away like trash. Sometimes he thought he was going to die, and only recently it dawned on him that he was still alive only because of his luck. He had to risk his life to get food. He could not find shoes or clothes to protect his body from stones and branches in the forest, and when night came, he could not sleep. Continuing to speak, the young man had already switched to shouting, but it sounded convincing. Meanwhile, he continued why he should go through all this, and answering his own question, he said that God allows people to call heroes, and also that God ignores the decline of his servants, and this God forgives the arrogance of people, and all the actions of this God led the guy to his true self. Enraged, Sumeragi shouted that he should smash the face of such a God. At this announcement, the sword laughed very loudly. The brunette continued, if the sword wants to stop him. But the sword interrupted him, saying that he was not going to stop him. The sword jumped into Tsukuru's hands, saying that it was interesting, and that it would help him take revenge. The young man was surprised when he grabbed the sword. Now the sword asked him to imagine the shape of the sword that would suit him. Continuing on his way, the guy asked Kirokiri if there was a village with people nearby. The sword jumping out of Sumeragi's hand said that he had bad news, since the place where they were was the center of the forest. The poor brunette could not believe what was happening, and was dumbfounded by what he heard. A loud, hot breath was heard. Turning around, Tsukuru saw a huge dragon, and the sword, with admiration, said, "Did the young man really go this way on purpose to find and kill the monster that rules this forest?" The guy sweated all over, seeing that it was a level 300 Imperial Dragon. The dragon immediately began to attack its victim. Sumeragi somehow managed to avoid the blow, because this monster was different from all those monsters that he had encountered before, both in level and outline. The sword volunteered to help, telling the brunette that he could use it for battle. Tsukuru had no idea how to use a sword to fight, and at that moment a fireball began to appear in the dragon's mouth. Something had to be done quickly. But it was too late. The dragon, with all its power, spat out a fireball at the young man, which sent him flying into the lake. Hitting the lake, the dragon continued to fly over its prey. The guy was lying unconscious in the water. The sword kept asking if he was alive, calling on him to get up. The dragon had already opened its mouth to swallow Sumeragi. The brunette only said how much he hated all this, and clenched his teeth. After coming to his senses, Tsukuru used dark magic and went underwater, hiding in the shadow of the dragon. The dragon, having lost sight of the young man, continued to search for him, and the boy, meanwhile, ate the food for recovery, grabbed the sword, and ran away. The sword did not understand where its owner was running, and Sumeragi continued to run away, realizing that he was not an opponent to the dragon now, and that he would not be able to kill him. The dragon, meanwhile, launched another fireball. The brunette managed to survive. He asked the sword if the dragon would be able to find him if he used dark magic. The sword did not have an answer to this question, but the only thing he knew was that he had never seen a person who could survive after a collision with this dragon. The dragon soared into the sky and appeared above Tsukuru. The dragon began to create a fireball in its mouth again. This time, Tsukuru used the iron wall skill. The young man couldn't help run away and couldn't get close to the dragon. He ate the restorative food again and used dark magic. His plan was to remove his presence and then dismantle it. But it was not to be. Soon the dragon discovered him and dealt him a series of blows. The boy tried to climb onto the dragon's back, but it became furious and threw him out. The fight continued. Sumeragi used a number of his skills, such as superhuman strength, iron wall, and still could not understand, because he used presence removal, why the dragon continued to look for him. Sword explained that the removal of presence doesn't work, because the killing intent is too strong. And even though you hide your breath, you also activated dismantling, meaning that you are still showing killing intent. Tsukuru had no other choice but to turn his murderous intent into love, and in a moment the brunette managed to touch the dragon. With a joyful look and a confident voice, he uttered only one word: dismantling. A young man in a black cloak and with a sword hovering in the air wandered among the rocky terrain, and suddenly came across a glass ball. Inside the ball there were balls. Most likely it was something like fortune. Tsukuru walked closer to the glass ball and turned it, hoping that luck would be on his side, but he ended up with a black ball. Suddenly the ball exploded, and white smoke appeared around. The guy started coughing, and suddenly a window popped up with a notification that a skill called Equivalent Exchange was activated. The sword told him that it was a great skill. Usually it means that this skill is rarer than usual. The boy replied that he was not sure, but most likely having one skill is not luck. The sword continued to address the boy, telling him that now he had to kill the boss and wait for the next appearance of the machine, since in any case he would have to raise the level of his skills, and now they would allocate time for the art of fencing. The young man with the sword cut down all the monsters that were in his path, left and right. The sword even noticed that the guy was getting better and better at this. The battles continued, and not only the guy improved his skills, but also his sword Kurokiri, receiving more and more passive skills. The young man did not forget to rest either, and, satisfied after the battles, took baths. The young man was happily relaxing in the bath, by the way. The bath was magical and was made with the help of ignition and a water pistol. Then Sumeragi turned to Kurokiri and said that he had done everything he asked. Now it was his turn to help him. Kurokiri immediately understood what was being talked about. The brunette really wanted to get out of the forest, and the sword knew how to do it. The sword immediately asked if the guy was really going to go out into the world in his scary and shabby cloak. Kurokiri was definitely right. Tsukuru had a bear skin, hyena fur, sheep wool, a little magic, and the clothes were ready. Now there was a completely different guy in front of us. Tall, with dark hair, a confident look, and normal clothes. A sheepskin t-shirt was intended for sleeping, a hyena jacket, a bearskin coat, bearskin jeans, bearskin boots. Now the young man was ready. Kurokiri advised to use camouflage. The guy was very curious about who he would meet first. Standing on the edge of a cliff and looking into the distance, the young man suddenly began to fall head over heels down the cliff. The guy did not understand what had happened. and the sword mockingly said that it was the first time he had seen a man who fell where he looked. Someone in the distance was shouting to be faster, not to break formation, and to stand to the last. This was some kind of cart with people driving along. On the other side of the road, someone was saying that they knew they weren't here to lose. Sumeri's eyes were filled with anger as he realized that these people were bandits who were robbing people. Here a fight began between the people who were in the carriage and the bandits. The brunette stood to the side. As someone called out to him, the young man was surprised at how they were able to notice him. There was a princess in the carriage. One of the bandits asked him who she was talking to. In the end, the bandits seized the carriage, grabbed the reins of the horses, and with laughter were about to leave. An enraged guy with a sword in his hand stood on the road, and the bandits rushed towards him at full speed singing songs. With one leap and one swing of his sword, Tsukuru cut off several heads from their shoulders. The remaining bandits panicked and did not understand what was happening and where he came from. The bandits began to break into the carriage. The princess inside did not understand what was happening. She was very scared. Then the carriage door opened. The princess was hugged and protected by a maid inside, and the princess saw a guy in dark clothes and with a sword in his hands running around and dealing with all the bandits. The horses continued to pull the cart. A young man stood on the roof of the cart. All the enemies were defeated. Kurukiri asked the young man how he felt now, because it was the first time he killed a man. The dejected, upset guy didn't understand why it was so easy for him to kill a man. He was tormented. Here the princess's people caught up with the carriage. The man, most likely a knight, immediately asked who he was. Sumeragi silently turned around and left. The princess's subjects immediately began asking if she was okay, while everyone looked after their savior and did not understand who this boy was. Finally, our hero reached a populated area where there were people, but the people were very unusual. On the heads of both girls and boys, there were ears, yes, different animal ears, hare, dog, fox, etc. The brunette's jaw dropped with joy and delight. Finally, his life is becoming like that of a normal person. Sitting in the office, most likely the king, the princess, and subjects told about what happened. She could not believe how he appeared so suddenly. Like a hero in a fairy tale, the old man laughed, saying that she met a really good man. Tsukuru, at this time, was walking around the city. The young man chewed a bun and reasoned that there weren't many weapons here, and the ingredients didn't look bad. Looking around, examining what the inhabitants usually eat, the young man concluded that the main food is bread, pasta, noodles. Then he saw rice. Then the girl asked him about what he knew about rice, and if he wanted to find it, then he probably wouldn't find it since it's rare, but he had a chance to find it in the Seidel store general. Young man found this shop. He entered the store and was met by a young saleswoman with cat ears. Greeting him, she asked how she could help him. Tsukuru sheepishly said that he was looking for rice. After talking with the girl, the guy was in such a joyful state, because he had not spoken to anyone for so long. The sword spoke to Tsukuru. He said if he liked her, then he could buy her. Tsukuru was taken aback. Slaves were distinguished by the fact that they wore a necklace around their neck. The girl led him into the warehouse, continuing to advertise the rice, telling him where it grew, but the guy was not interested in where the rice grew. He was interested in the types of rice. Continuing to examine the rice, the young man looked at the grains of rice with a knowing look. One looked like Japanese rice. The other was like a type of egg rice. I bought 10 bags. At that moment, an old man came up. Introducing himself as the owner of the store, he had no ears, but he had a tail. He came up to say hello because the guy had made a large purchase. He also asked where to deliver the bags of rice. The young man said there was no need to deliver them anywhere, and with one movement of his hand, the bags disappeared. The owner's mouth dropped open, and he immediately began trying to sell him all the goods, from food to slaves. The owner, with a smirk in his eyes, realized that Sumeragi was interested. When the word slaves was said, the brunette tried to brush it off, but the owner insisted on just looking. Entering the room where the slaves were, they turned out to be ordinary people, who, by the way, were also protected by law. The slaves looked like ordinary maids. But the owner led him into some other room. He led him to the door. The shop owner continued to tell. The cages were full of slaves. They were criminal slaves. They were not protected by law, and they had no rights. They are not sent to prison, but are sent specifically to be slaves, so that they can benefit the public. Then the owner pointed to a certain girl who was standing in the corner with her back to them. The sad girl sat in the corner. Her eyes were empty. It turned out that she worked as a sorceress in the house of a rich nobleman. where a child was killed. At that moment, she was closest to the scene of the crime, so she was accused. The young man was surprised only because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He asked the owner if he thought she was involved in this, to which the owner replied that he had no idea. The owner continued to say that her father and he himself were close friends, but her father passed away 2 years ago. He continued to speak positively, saying that she had a kind heart, and now they want to accuse her of murder. The old man clenched his hands into fists, out of despair and hopelessness. The old man began to beg the customer to buy her, to which Sukuru replied negatively. Because he did not want to involve others in his plan, the old man looked at the boy with complete despair in his eyes, saying that then she would definitely be executed if he did not take her right away. Suddenly, a guy with long blonde hair came in screaming, shouting that he wanted to buy the slave. Kana, the guy who burst in, was called Dokum. He looked at the young man with a displeased look, asking him who he was. Here Dokum started to tell old man Seidel to deal with the guy later, since Dokum was more important, but Sumeragi intervened in the conversation, saying that they had already talked with Seidel and that he had entered with a scream. Dokum tried to say something else, but Nebrunetru did not let him finish, telling Seidel that he would buy Kanu for 100 million gold. Both men were stunned. The long-haired youth did not want to accept the information he heard, and wanted to buy Kanu himself at any cost. Seidel tried to stop and calm Dokuma down, telling him that the client had agreed to buy Kanu before he entered. Dokum grabbed Tsukuru by the collar, telling him that he didn't care who he was and how dare he be so impudent to him. They exchanged glances, contemptuous and embittered views. The old man kept trying to calm Dokum down, and the young man stood there as if nothing had happened. The sword asked if he was sure that he wanted to buy her, to which the guy with a thoughtful look replied that he really didn't want to involve anyone, but for himself he decided that he would destroy all those who dared to displease him. The young man with the sword told the old man that he was in his debt. Then the old man said that he would definitely repay him for all the good he had done today. The old man was very happy, and was very glad that his guess was correct. The boy and Kana left, and the old man kept watching them, and thought that since he was able to use the assessment on him with his ability, he was sure that he would be able to protect Kana, and that she would have a very bright and very exciting future. It was raining outside. A dark-haired young man sat looking thoughtfully out the window. He had bought a slave, done a favor for Sitoras, but Sitoras still charged him the full price, and now he was completely ruined. Continuing to look thoughtfully out the window, the guy wanted to leave this city as soon as possible, but now he would have to change his plans, and first he needed to earn some money. Sumeragi looked at the bed where the girl was resting, covered with a blanket and sleeping soundly. The young man wanted to let her rest until she felt well enough. It was time to eat, and the brunette began to prepare food, carefully washed the rice, cut the bread, and something was already boiling on the stove. Having prepared some healthy food and set the table, the guy turned to Kana, telling her to eat as much as she wanted. He continued in embarrassment that he didn't know what exactly they ate in this world. Then he looked at the girl in surprise, since she didn't sit down at the table, but sat on the floor, taking the plate on her knees, and began to eat the food with her hands. Tsukuru indignantly took the plate from Kana, asking what she was doing, to which the girl responded with only 3 words: slave, food, on the floor. The guy did not understand anything from what was said. Then the sword explained that all criminal slaves eat and sleep on the floor. The young man said that it did not bother him, and that she should sit on a chair and eat at the table, and also that she should not eat with her bare hands. The girl did not answer. Kana sat silently at the table, picked up the utensils, and began to eat. The young man noticed that her manner of eating was quite elegant, and her aura was different from the other slaves that the old man kept. The young man, with an ingratiating look, began to ask her how she liked the food, whether it was tasty, since he was quite confident in his culinary skills, but the girl continued to eat silently. The guy thought to himself that the food he gave the girl was medicinal. The food was supposed to heal physical wounds in an instant, and he wondered if this food also affected mental health. Suddenly, tears started running down the girl's face, and she started crying. The girl continued to cry. The instruments fell out of her hands. She covered her face with her hands, and was already crying bitterly. The guy did not begin to calm her down, asking why she was crying. Kana lay back down on the bed, also crying, and kept mentioning a certain Dolce herself. The sword said that this proved that her mind was healed, and Sumeragi's healing food worked. But the guy couldn't believe it, since the photos where she was so happy and with a wide smile said otherwise. He wondered what those people did to her, that now she was in such a depressed state. Remembering everything that had happened to him over the past months, the brunette concluded that all nobles were inhuman. The sword felt something, and the young man already realized that someone was watching them and preparing to attack. Tsukuru said that it was just small fry that couldn't even hide their presence. The guy immediately determined that there were only 5 people there in total. There was some kind of roar. The guy sitting in ambush did not understand who it was there in the bushes. Suddenly a bear appeared behind his back. But the bear turned out to be a guy. The young man grabbed the guy in the mask. He tried to break free, but no such luck. The guy kicked the bandit, thereby knocking the knife out of his hands. The young man in the bearskin grabbed the bandits, asking him who sent him. He wanted to run away, but the young man in black held him tightly. Pinning him down with his foot, Tsukuru continued to interrogate him about their purpose and who told him he was here. Finally, the bandit spoke. He was scared. He said that he had no idea who Sumeragi was, and that they had to kill the red-haired slave who was constantly walking around the brunette. The guy frantically continued to say that they knew nothing about him or the girl, and if they knew who they were fighting, they would never have taken on this job. Tsukuru looked angrily at the bandits and hit him so hard that he flew back several meters. The guy was about to leave, when the bandit asked him if he didn't want to know who was behind all this. The guy in black left silently, already understanding who was involved in this. The young man was going up to his home, and someone was watching him from the side. Birds were chirping outside. Kana woke up from a long, deep sleep. She got up and looked out the window. The dark-haired guy was sitting and cleaning his shoes. Now that he was in the city among people, he needed to keep them clean. Then he looked at the girl who was next to him and thought that she didn't even take a bath. The girl was sleeping, and the guy, looking at her, thought that her nightmares had finally passed. He decided to cook something for her. At that moment, Kana was dreaming, or maybe it was memories, when she worked for a rich, noble family. She and a cute little boy were holding hands and talking. She was telling him about her father, and that he was no longer there. The boy grabbed her hands and told her to consider them her new family. In turn, Kana sat on her knees, looked into the boy's eyes, and said that she was very grateful to him. Squeezing his little hand, she smiled and said that she was very happy to work for such kind people. Kana squatted and talked to the flower that grew in the castle walls. She said, "You know that you will have to be eliminated, having dug it up." She transplanted it into a pot and put it in her room. At that moment, the man, barely catching his breath, called out to her, saying that the Count's son had been attacked. The boy was lying on the ground, covered in blood, and Kana froze in horror. But immediately coming to her senses, she ran up to him, telling him not to die, why he was here alone, and where the attackers were. She said to him what now will cure his magic. Trying her best to treat the boy, the bleeding continued as the wounds were too deep. Dolce coughed up blood, and Kana could do nothing. He was dying. A blond boy ran up, saw the scene, swore, and began to ask what happened. And at that moment, Kana hugged the boy's motionless body. The girl was in such a broken state, the tears did not stop flowing, and then accusations rained down on her. Everyone accused her of killing the boy. Allegedly, she killed him for money. She tried to justify herself, but no one listened to her. They gave her a letter, supposedly she wrote it, and lured Dolce. Then Kana began to cry bitterly and scream that it was not her. The girl was sold into slavery. Her gaze became empty and tired. She did not eat anything. Other slaves forced her to eat, saying that she should be happy that she was not beheaded for the murder of the Count's son. She barely managed to take a couple of sips of the disgusting stew. The slave girl sitting next to her with a scar near her eye said that if she did not eat, she would eat her own soup, and she added with a sharp look that if she did not eat, she would die, and they would soon be sold, and they would see only hard labor and the whip. With her face buried in her knees and crying, Kana didn't understand why they were doing this to her, what she had done wrong. Her thoughts were only about Mr. Dolce, and if he were alive, none of this would have happened. Suddenly, voices began to be heard from somewhere, and someone said that he wanted to buy her. She became curious about who bought her. At some point, someone extended a hand to her. Some dark-haired guy was preparing food and told her to sit at the table and eat. Most likely it was her new owner. There was food on the table. She couldn't remember the last time she ate normal food. Kana wasn't hungry, but she couldn't disobey her master, so she forced herself to eat a couple of spoons. After eating a piece, she suddenly had a strange feeling. Her owner was saying something nearby, but she didn't hear him. After she ate the second piece, she suddenly saw something. She had a vision of the scene where Dolce was lying bloody on the ground, and she was leaning over him, sobbing, holding his hands. Suddenly, Dolce, with a smile on his lips, whispered that everything was okay now and that she shouldn't cry. After a moment, Kana woke up with tears in her eyes. Sumeragi sat and ate, counting his money at the same time. There wasn't much money left, and it would be hard to cover living expenses. Then the guy noticed that Kana had woken up. He immediately asked her if she was hungry. She was very hungry. After eating a dozen plates of rice, she asked for more. The happy brunette only had time to cook. Then the sword asked if she was really human. She had eaten so much food, to which the young man replied that it was helping her to recover, that now her face did not look so pale and she seemed more lively. Tsukuru asked her if it was tasty, and she, with a very satisfied look, replied that it was tasty. Kana so joyfully and serenely, Tsukura's heart began to beat faster, and suddenly Kana fell off her chair. The young man immediately ran up to her and caught her so that she wouldn't hit her head. He was perplexed as to what was wrong with her. He wondered if she had an allergy, or if she had eaten too much, or if she should be ordered to stop eating. The poor young man didn't know what to think. Suddenly, the sword said that she had fallen asleep, and indeed, probably for the first time in so long, the girl slept in such a calm and serene sleep. Kana was happily wolfing down everything she had. Today's breakfast was pizza toast, an egg sandwich, a Caesar salad and grapefruit yogurt. She seemed to like it all, the guy said. The young man turned to the girl, saying that he was glad that she was feeling well, as if nothing had happened. The girl accidentally dropped a piece of toast on herself and stained her clothes. She wanted to use the well to clean her dress, but Tsukuru got ahead of her. With one snap of his fingers, the dress and even the hair were cleaned. He also gave her underwear as a gift, saying that she was sleeping strangely. He also made a bra for her. She was absolutely delighted, and asked him what country this underwear was from. Sumeragi sadly replied that most likely it was from Japan. Kana didn't know about Japan, but she remembered that when they were summoning heroes from another world to defeat the Demon King, but there was one hero that no country wanted, and they called him, but the guy beat her to it again, and he introduced himself to her as a brunette. Kana was very surprised. The girl recognized him. She realized that it was the one who was abandoned by the world. Like her, she happily introduced herself to him once again as Kana, and said that she would be happy to carry out his orders, and the first thing Tsukuru asked was for her to show him the city. Walking around the city, Kana showed the guy all the sights, restaurants, parks, and a gun shop. Here the guy told the girl that he was poor, and that while she was showing him the city, he was still thinking about what kind of business to open. He told her that he was a cook. Kana was confused, telling him that he couldn't open a shop as a newbie and without any connections. After a moment, the young man became wary. He initially felt someone following them from the very entrance. Then he asked her how they could get into Seidel's shop. Unfortunately, Kana did not remember anything about the store. From the moment of her imprisonment in this store, the guy looked at her with a little pity and said that he knew where his store was. Arriving at Seidel, they were met by the same saleswoman as the first time. She immediately began to call the owner. The old man immediately ran out, hugged Kana tightly, and cried with joy. He was so glad that she had returned to normal. Sumeragi immediately took the bull by the horns, saying that he had come to ask for a favor. Seidel was upset that he couldn't help and tried to dissuade the boy, telling him that rice food was not popular in their city. There was a plate of onigiri in front of Seidel. Moreover, there were too many cafes in the area, and government approval was needed. The brunette listened with a serious expression, but asked to try his food first. Seidel looked at them and immediately saw the skills of each triangle. Each onigiri contained a skill, for example, the skill of endurance for 2 hours, or the skill of intelligence, which also lasted for 2 hours. Tsukuru added that he could make 100 of these a day. Seidel was delighted. He immediately sensed a money vein and offered him his store for sale. As they were leaving the store, Kana and Sumeragi continued their conversation. Kana was worried about whether the sales would go well. When 2 men in identical uniforms came out to meet them, the young man remembered them. They were the people from the cart he saved. The men introduced themselves as Rotgen and Goliath and asked to go through Sumeragi with them. He asked if he could take a slave with him, to which Rotgen replied that it might bring up bad memories. Then Sumeragi asked Kana directly if she wanted to go, to which she replied that it was her master's choice alone, and then Kana said that she would go. At the entrance, they were met by a butler. When they entered the palace, whispers began immediately, and angry and condemning looks followed Kana as she walked down the corridor. Sumeragi took Kanu's hand and entered the office where the owner of the palace and his daughter were sitting. The count introduced himself as Dengaro, and the daughter was Altelius. He apologized for calling the guy so suddenly. It was obvious that Kana knew Altelius well. The princess immediately approached Sumeragi, and with an ingratiating look thanked him for saving her that day. She also looked at Kana and also greeted her. The count said it was an honor to reward him. 2 maids came and placed 2 chests in front of the count. He continued to say that in these chests were 10 million gold and a short sword with the initials of their family, and that it was insignificant compared to the life of his daughter. Sumeragi was very surprised. 10 million gold, he thought to himself, is 20 times the price of Kana. Dengaro continued to say that as long as he keeps this blade in this country, he will be considered his follower. Sumeragi asked him why he is giving him something so valuable. Then he answered that he wants to ask him for a favor. Dengaro said that Kana killed his son Dolce, and immediately tears appeared in Kana's eyes, and Sumeragi's gaze changed and became prickly and angry. Or, continued Dengaro, the whole story continues, but he does not believe because there is no evidence of her innocence, and so he used his influence to change the death sentence to slavery and assigned her to Seidel. The count said that everyone present here, namely Rotgen, Goliath, Altelius, believe that Kana is innocent. Kana's eyes filled with tears from amazement, and Sumeragi was wondering what kind of continuation Dengaro was talking about. And Dengaro said in a loud voice that he wanted to find the real killer of his son. Seidel burst in, pleased, and said that yesterday he had finished all the work so that they were ready to sell onigiri. Then he began to tell his business plan with great enthusiasm, saying that they would sell each onigiri for 10,000 gold, and perhaps even 20,000. Then they would need to increase the amount of food. All this time, Sumeragi silently ignored him. Sumeragi began to say that he had no more money. The old man thoughtfully adjusted his collar. Suddenly, the boy handed him a sword, saying that it was a short sword. Sumeragi recalled the events when he received this sword. This sword was given to him by Count Dengaro, and begged him to find his son's killer. Dengaro continued that of course the young man would be rewarded and would receive 5 million gold as an advance payment, and once you found the culprit, he would give him another 10 million gold. Sumeragi thought about it and asked what would happen to Kana when he found the real killer. Goliath replied that she would of course be freed from all charges. The guy was glad that then the girl would be able to take off the collar, because it did not suit her. Altelius beamed and told Kana that as soon as that happened, she would work for them again. Altelius took Kana's hand and said that she missed her very much, and that she felt lonely at the tea party. Sumeragi looked at them and said that he accepted their request. The count was very pleased with the brunette's agreement, but Sumeragi warned him that he was not such a great expert in such matters. The old man and the boy continued to talk. Watching Kana talk carefree, Tsukuru continued to say that the one who killed Mr. Dolce might be nearby. The old man agreed that there was a risk, so the boy said that even if they left the city, Kana would still be in danger. The guy didn't want the girl to live in constant fear. The boy and girl left the old man's shop. At that moment, the sword told Sumeragi that apparently he likes saving people, to which the boy replied that there are still people who believe in Kana, and that he is sure that she did not kill anyone, and he does not want her to be the target of someone's revenge. Suddenly, Kana turned around with a wide smile and waved at the old man and ran after the guy, and as soon as he decided this issue, he could calmly leave her in this city. Sumeragi and Kana came to the earl's mansion. They were met by a maid named Hannah. The brunette told her that he wanted to talk to Rotten or Goliath. Hannah informed that Rotten was in the mansion, but at the moment he was talking to his wife. Tsukuru immediately puffed up with a little envy, while Kana smiled and said that his wife Alice was simply beautiful, and that they had a son, Cloud. Hannah was leading the guests down the corridor of the mansion, when suddenly that nasty blonde guy came out to meet them and immediately started shouting what Sumeragi was doing here. The blonde began to say angrily and forcefully that this was the count's mansion, abuse, and that there was no place for commoners like the boy here. To which Sumeragi retorted that this place was even less suitable for those who shouted at the top of their voices. The blonde's face twisted into an angry grimace, and he attacked the dark-haired guy with his fists, Sumeragi in the face with all his might. The guy's expression didn't even change. The blonde swore and didn't understand what was happening, and suddenly blood gushed from his hand. He screamed in pain. Dokkum didn't understand how this could happen, because he was level 300, endurance rank S. After some time, the knight's team approached. Dokkum began to scream hysterically, ordering them to grab Sumeragi, that he had injured him. The brunette just looked at him with disdain the whole time. Grabbing the swords, one of the knights asked to go with them. Kana could not stand it, and covered Sumeragi with her body, protecting him. And Sumeragi was about to pull out his sword, and looked at Kana in surprise. Finally, Mr. Rotten came up and asked what they were thinking about. Rotter continued, asking them what they were thinking, pointing his sword at their dear guest. Dokkum, with anger in his eyes, stretched out his bloody hand, showing it to Rotten and saying how he could be a guest, when this guest had broken his fist and even his bones. Rotten did not say a word. He looked at Sumeragi, but he just threw up his hands, and Dokkum continued to brazenly lie, saying that he tried to stop Tsukuru's blow. Rotten looked at Dokuma thoughtfully and said that he couldn't believe him for blocking Sumeragi's punch with his fist, since if the boy had really tried to hit him, his arm would have been torn off. Dokuma was at a loss, answering that it was ridiculous, since he wasn't a demon. Then Rotten continued, informing that he had seen this young man twice in battle, and that he had killed all the bandits in the blink of an eye. Rotten asked Dokkum to apologize to the guy, to which he began to behave very aggressively, shouting that this Sumeragi was level 20 at most. Rotten asked her to blind eye to this and asked the guys to take him to the infirmary, but Dokkum didn't want to, so they grabbed him by force and dragged him away. Rotten was very ashamed of Dokkum, and the brunette, even in this situation, thought that Rotten acted harshly. Suddenly, Kana's knees buckled, and she fell. The poor thing was very worried. Sumeragi was worried about Kana and asked to take her to a room where she could rest. Suddenly, Rotten knelt down in front of Tsukuru and Kana and apologized to them for everything that had happened. Rotten said with a confident look that he was in their debt, and that this time he would restore their honor. The young man, acting as if nothing had happened, said that he had arrived on time and that he would like to talk to him. Hannah walked down the hallway of the mansion, pushing a cart of food in front of her. Her steps echoed throughout the hallway. As she got closer to the door, she heard voices loudly discussing something. Sumeragi loudly complained about how this paper could be called a protocol. He sighed with a dejected look, and said that even a schoolboy like him could understand that this report was useless. The level of culture in this world is very low, he said out loud. Sword noted that someone planned this, the boy agreed, and added that someone very influential was involved. Sumeragi was completely immersed in his thoughts. He stood thoughtfully and thought about who stood out, who benefited from killing the count. Why, out of all the servants they chose Kanu, was it a coincidence, or was it all planned in advance? Hannah finally entered Sumeragi's door carrying a tray in her hands. The young man asked her what she wanted, to which the maid replied that the princess had ordered her to bring tea and candy for Kana. Kana was sitting in the corner on the floor, dejected, and apparently had no appetite. Hannah, seeing this, bowed. The brunette wanted to touch Kana's shoulder, but suddenly she screamed as if stunned and pulled his hand away. Before Kana's eyes appeared the man who threatened to arrest her for murder. The boy looked at her with surprise and concern. She asked him to apologize. The boy asked her not to worry. Kana said with sadness and concern in her eyes that this was a terrible story, and that if she had been stronger, Mr. Dolce would still be alive. Kana began to tell that when she ran to Mr. Dolce, he was still alive, and if someone stronger had been nearby, then one of them could have saved him. She was too weak as a magician. Harry immediately appeared before Tsukuru's eyes, tensing up. He turned to her. He asked Kanu if she wanted to become strong, and she cried out with tears in her eyes that more than anything in the world she wanted to become strong. Here Sumeragi summoned all the food from the forest that gave skills and told her to eat. She agreed in a state of shock, and as soon as she tried the first spoon, the ability of wind magic was immediately learned. Kana. I was surprised. Looking at Kana, the young man was surprised that he had given her so much magical food. But in the end, she had only received 2 abilities. Her level was 23. The guy continued to explain to her about passing the levels, but the girl interrupted him, asking him to focus more on the investigation than on her training, To which the young man stubbornly and confidently replied that he did not plan to postpone any of this. Then he whispered to her that now he would tell her something, but only that she should not tell anyone. The boy waved his hand, and at that very moment, everything around him darkened and was covered in black smoke. The young man called Ghost. A huge skeletal creature appeared. It was the necromancer crusher. Kana was in deep shock. And the guy was already starting to get tired, since the summoning requires quite a lot of energy. The ghost turned to Sumeragi and asked him to grant him a name. The brunette looked at him questioningly, and the ghost explained that it was necessary so that he could follow his orders. And then boy named his biz. Bai's burst into a satisfied laugh. He was delighted with the energy consumption from Sumeragi. Tsukuru continued speaking. He wanted Bais to do something for him. Here's Bize. He grabbed the guy's face with his bony hands and said that he didn't even need to ask for anything. He already knew what was in his master's head. Bais told him that he would look for him and disappeared. The young man was so exhausted and tired. He had never felt like this. Suddenly, Kana, apparently due to an excess of emotions, lost consciousness. There was a knock on the door. It was the princess. She looked into the room and said that she felt something dangerous in his room. The guy assured her that everything was fine, and then looked at her thoughtfully and remembered that back then in the carriage she was very sensitive to sounds in the presence of anything. She also asked him to stop calling her princess and to address her as Eli. Kana appeared behind the guy. She asked Eli what brought her. It turns out she heard about Kana's condition and wanted to invite them to the garden for tea. The boy and the girl walked through the garden, admiring the garden. It was beautiful. Joyful Eli was happy to see guests in her garden, since they had not been there for a long time. She invited Kana to sit down, to which she refused, saying that she could not, because she was a slave. Eli looked at it like this, sad with a glance on her. Kana remained standing. Sumeragi sat down at the table, and Eli began to reminisce about how, in the old days, Kana and Dolce often drank tea in this garden. Sumeragi looked thoughtfully into his cup of tea. Eli looked at him and asked if everything was okay with the tea, and if he liked black tea in general. He answered, "What, like?" He inhaled the aroma and took a sip, saying that the tea was indeed delicious, that it had a clean aroma, and thinking to himself, he added that it would have been wonderful if it had not been poisoned. The guy analyzed the remaining food and drinks on the table, but only his tea was poisoned. He won't suffer from such a quantity of poison, but if it were an ordinary person in his place, he would have died long ago. Watching everyone around who could have done this, Eli herself ordered the maid, or the maid acted herself. Meanwhile, Eli asked the young man about the investigation and how it was progressing. Sumeragi said that he had studied the report, but it was of no use. The princess agreed with him, and she added that the report did not include the testimony of the 4 people. Eli became even more serious. She, remembering, said that before the murder of her brother, she heard him talking to someone. That person spoke quietly, and also that she heard the ringing of armor. Soon after all these events, Dolce was killed. The brunette exclaimed that no one had told him about it. Then Eli began to shout that she had told the knights who were compiling the report about it, and that they simply did not want to write it down. No one wanted to believe what I could hear through the thick door. She put her head down on the table and started crying, and Sakura couldn't figure out whether to believe her or not. He already knew that she had very sensitive hearing, but she could also be lying to him because the poison didn't work, if of course it was Eli who prepared it. Suddenly Sumeragi caught a glance at himself. He turned his head sharply and looked into the eyes of the maid, Hannah. She here same lowered eyes, and the young man all understood. The young man called Baze again and told him to check on Eli's personal maid. The young man continued his investigation, thoughtfully propping his chin. He began to remember everything in chronological order. On the day of the incident, the Count left the palace with Rotten and Goliath. Before the incident, Eli heard Dolce talking to a man wearing armor. At the same time, Kana was cleaning the walls of the estate after someone told her what happened. But when she arrived, the killer had already left, and Kana arrived too late to save. Then Dokum found her at the crime scene. All this time, the boy sat on the tree, watching as Kana was chased by a tree monster and 2 cat-like monsters. As he had promised her, he was not going to stop training with her, and he was not going to stop investigating. Before starting training, Sumeragi created equipment for the girl. She felt a little awkward in it, as it was extremely provocative. Turning to her, Sumeragi asked that wasn't she the one who said that she was ready to do anything just to become stronger. Their dialogue continued. He told her that for now, Baez would be conducting the investigation and they would focus on raising her level. He told her that they would go to the bull forest to train. Kana was surprised. She knew that it was a very dangerous place, and it was not easy to get into this forest. Having told him all this, Sumeragi silently picked Kana up in his arms, and after some time they were already in the forest. Kana started training, and immediately two cat-like monsters attacked her and cornered her. She only dodged and was very scared. The young man got rid of the monsters with one blow. Sumeragi looked at her and asked if she really wanted to become stronger. Kana, with tears in her eyes, said that it was impossible, that she couldn't fight level 200 monsters. Sumeragi looked at her with a very stern look. Sumeragi turned his back to her, said that was all then, and left. Kana continued to sit on her knees, silently looking at his back with despair. Suddenly, Dolce's face appeared in front of Kana, and the whole situation that happened to her. She shouted to him in a confident and loud voice that he should not give up. She immediately used fire spear magic, and dozens of fireballs appeared around. At that very moment, her levels began to rise, and she looked at the pop-up windows in surprise. The girl looked on in admiration, and said that she had done it, and that her levels were continuing to rise. The happy boy smiled, and she realized that he did it on purpose. Then he said that they were still far from the finish line, and that this was only the beginning. Standing in the forest and propping up his sides, the young man told the girl that if she suddenly took damage, he would give her health-restoring food. Kana looked at him with horror, and half-jokingly and half-seriously said that she hated him. Sumeragi carried the girl, who was sleeping from fatigue, in his arms. Kana ran around the forest all day, raising her level. She raised her level well from 25 to 158, so the brunette had to hide her status. Suddenly, who that called out his? The one who called out to them was Goliath. He worriedly asked if everything was okay with Kana. The guy answered that she was okay and she was just tired after training. Goliath shook his head, upset, and continued to say that ever since that incident, she had been deeply distressed by her weakness. Here the knight abruptly changed the subject, and smiling sarcastically asked him what he was doing there. It turned out that Goliath himself was patrolling the area. Supposedly, a bear was roaming around in the area. The knight put his arm around Sumeragi's shoulder and invited him to dinner, saying that he would treat him to his favorite place. Trying to refuse, Goliath suddenly became wary, telling Sakuru to be careful, as there were many people from the slums wandering around today. A contented Goliath and Kana enjoyed the drinks and food to the fullest. Goliath asked Sumeragi why he wasn't eating or drinking. Sumeragi replied that he didn't think patrolling should drink. Then the knight yelled at him how a man could call himself a knight if, after drinking, he couldn't handle a sword. Here, Goliath began to sob, asking for forgiveness from Kana for leaving her alone on the day Dolce died. The young man asked him if all decent knights worked under Dengro's leadership, to which Goliath yelled again and said that this was not the case. The knights left the squad together with Dengaro, Rotten, and Goliath, and they took several subordinates with them. Well, the leader of the third squad, Jiben, stayed with his people and the remaining people of Rotten and Goliath. Goliath hit the table with his fist, not understanding how Dolce ended up outside the gate with so many knights, and the guy concluded for himself that it means there were many knights that day, and it will be difficult to recognize with whom Dolce spoke that day. After finishing the meal, the knight volunteered to accompany them to the estate. Upon entering the mansion, they were met by Baez. Sumeragi asked Baizu if he found anything, to which Baizu waved his hand and they suddenly found themselves in another room. Kana was surprised, and Baizu explained that the place they found themselves in was virtual, and he recreated what he saw with his own eyes. The boy and girl approached a portrait that depicted a seated woman, Sumeragi. Questioningly, I looked at Kanu, and she explained that the portrait was of Dalkam's wife, the most. Baezi reproduced cabinet document. Suddenly, Baez waved his hands again, a drawer opened from behind the desk, and a letter suddenly flew out. The letter flew to the guy's hand. On the envelope he read that it was Eraha Fuselage. The brunette pulled the letter out of the envelope, and he and Kana began to read it. They read with horror from this letter that Fuzel had entrusted someone with getting rid of the child of this treacherous fox. He swore to Dokumu that he would make him a baron for all his efforts. Sumeragi was amazed by Base that he could find such necessary proof. The boy handed the letter to Base again, and it disappeared along with Base. Kana was horrified by what she read. She couldn't believe it, because Dokumu was so angry at her for not being able to save Dolce, and all this time he knew the identity of the real culprit, but he still arrested her. Tsukuru put his hand on her shoulder and told her to calm down. Now he asked her if she knew someone named Eric. Fusel, she replied that she was sure it was the Count, and most likely they had a lot of contact and friendship with the Abus family, so it would look ridiculous if they were targeting Dolce's life. Sumeragi thought about it, and called Base again. He, having appeared, immediately understood what his master expected of him and immediately disappeared. And Kana, in a state of shock, plopped down on a chair and could not believe what was happening, as if it was all a dream. The girl suggested that then perhaps Altelius was also in danger, to which the young man replied that he couldn't say anything for sure yet. If they had been aiming at Eli's life, then most likely she would have been poisoned at the same time as him that day, or perhaps she was already in someone's hands. The only person who definitely has nothing to do with all this is the one who was insulted in the letter, that is, Dengaro, but for now they don't know how influential these Irish are fuselage and document, then you can't trust anyone. After ordering Kana not to open the door to anyone, Sumeragi prepared to leave to find out more information about the matter. With a snap of his fingers, Sumeragi changed his gear to his old hermit coat. Unnoticed already, it has arrived morning. Suddenly, Sumeragi heard a rough male voice through the window, scolding someone for being late, and at the same time scolding another to swing his sword more confidently. All the knights were standing in formation when suddenly the Sumeragi heard two knights whispering, who were talking about Captain Jiben as a very strict man, and that they wanted to be under the command of Captain Rotten or Captain Goliath. Captain Jiben was a stern-looking man with a beard, and he was not of the beast race, so he acted so desperately because he did not want to lose to the other two captains. The whispers continued that it was he who remained in the castle when Dolce-sama died, and after the death of a certain Messiah-sama, it was Dokam who took the place of the chief wizard. The guy continued to eavesdrop on the whispers of the two knights. It turns out Dokam was promoted, and his group won, and the only daughter of Messiah Sami, Kana, became a slave. Also, some say that the death of Messiah Sami was not an accident, and that Dokam removed him. The gossip's topic suddenly changed to onigiri. Saying that they were great, Sumeragi smiled when he heard about his production. Walking down the hallway and thinking about how many people were attached to Dokumu, a ball suddenly rolled towards him. Sumeragi saw a little boy running up and picking up the ball. Suddenly Tsukuru remembered Eli's words that Dolce was always absorbed in playing ball, and that he even broke a tree branch once. That's probably it, Dolce thought to the brunette. Suddenly someone called the boy's name Cloud. The boy shouted to his mother that he was coming and ran towards her. Tsukuru looked after him, and he met Eli's gaze. She greeted him, and behind her stood a girl, and that boy, the young man, came closer, greeted her in return, asked Eli to introduce the people standing nearby. She said that the girl's name was Alicia, and she was Rotten's wife, and the boy's name was Cloud, he was their son. The boy bowed and introduced himself again, and Eli continued to say that after Dolce's death, Cloud began to come and visit them with his father quite often. Smiling sweetly, Eli said that Alicia is also the niece of her father's friend, Count Eric. Fusela. Make. The guy immediately tensed up when he heard the familiar name. Hannah knocked on the door. There was silence in response. Then Hannah said that they were going to have breakfast, and that she had already sent a maid to call Sumeragi and Kana, and if she would like to join them. The young man, deciding to show the essence of the matter, asked Eli that she communicates and dines with the wife and child of her knight, whether they communicate as a master and her servants, to which Eli smilingly replied that this is not so. It turns out that the Rotten family is the main branch of the Ibis family, and for many generations they serve at the head of the royal detachment, and also today the current head is Rotten's father. Then Sumeragi continued, that means they are the closest relatives of the Ibis family, and if Dengar does not have children, then most likely Rotten or Cloud will be the heirs. The guy didn't hesitate to ask the following question. Is it possible that Eli and Cloud will get married and head the Ibis family? Eli and Cloud, even from surprises, turned red. Cloud immediately began to frantically say that he was not worthy of the princess, that he was not as educated, and that he was younger than the princess, because he was still a child. Eli jokingly said that in 10 years he would become a handsome young man, and maybe then her father would give his consent. Suddenly, the young man saw an evil laugh on Alicia's face, as if she was plotting something. Everyone gathered in the dining room. Count Dengaro approached, and everyone greeted each other. Hannah bowed and said that she had been to Kana's chambers, but she did not answer her. Sumeragi sat next to Eli and sat with a bored look, and Eli was very sorry that Kana could not come. Sword told Sumeragi that he hoped that Kanu was not killed, to which Sumeragi replied that she was no longer so weak as to let herself be killed by some servant. Moreover, if she was killed, he would definitely notice. Hannah approached the brunette and asked permission to pour him some water. Sokuru looked at her with apprehension, but allowed her to do so after analyzing all the food on the table for poison, and his glass of water was poisoned again. While Hannah was pouring water, she was trembling. Sumeragi was glaring at her with a cold gaze. Then Eli asked the young man if anything was bothering him, to which he replied in the negative. Count Dengaro said that since everyone had gathered, it was high time to ask. He asked Sumeragi how the investigation was going. Alice asked in surprise what kind of investigation. Dengaro explained that they had assigned Mr. Sumeragi to investigate Dolce's death. Suddenly Alicia clapped her hands. The guy did not quite understand her emotions. They were unnatural. In response to the Count's question, the young man replied that he had not yet come to any conclusions, and that he had just found a clue. The Count was encouraged by this. Eli said that it sounded promising. Cloud caught up with Sumeragi and asked him if he could help with the investigation into the murder. Brunetru immediately asked if his mother ordered him to ask about it, to which Cloud replied in the negative. He confidently said that when he grows up, he wants to become a great knight from the Ibis family like his father. The boy continued to say that Altelius and Dolce were like brother and sister to him, and clenching his little fists, he said that he would never forgive the one who killed Dolce. Clasping his hands in front of him, Cloud said that Altelius could also be in danger, and that he wanted to protect her. Sakura suggested that he protect Dalius, and it would be best if he stayed close to her. Entering the room, he saw Kana sleeping and drooling. He thought, how much longer could she sleep, and poured water on her, adding that they were going to Seidel's store. Arriving at the store, the slave saleswoman immediately picked up Kana and said that Kana needed a new outfit, since in this outfit she looked too revealing. Sumeragi tried to stop her by saying that she was comfortable in it, but she was adamant. The girl happily dragged Kana away, and the young man, with a serious look, turned decidedly to keep an eye on Kana, since he was going to get down to business. The guy stood and looked at the human bones. Baze stood behind him. He asked him if he was sure that they were the ones who killed Falls. As he got closer, the young man smelled the same murderous lust that he had felt at the crime scene. Baze said that they had most likely been killed somewhere else and brought here to feed the animals. The youth said that they could not present bones alone as evidence. Baz told the youth to give him everything. Entering the room where Kana was, she appeared before him so beautiful and in such an exquisite dress. The guy was even a little embarrassed at the sight of her. The slave said that everything suits her, but it is best to take something that is comfortable to move in. Sumeragi immediately agreed to take her dress, and it cost him 100,000 gold. After leaving the store, Kana was so happy. The guy asked her why she wasn't wearing it now. She said that Sumeragi himself bought her this dress, that she would only wear it on the most important occasions, and that she would keep it. Sumeragi's cheeks immediately turned red. While walking home, Sumeragi and Kana were passing by some gateway, when a guy ran out of the same gateway. The guy had white hair and was wearing a mask, and running up to Kana, he stabbed her in the side. The guy was very scared for the girl, shouting her name and looking at her. She was fine. There was not a scratch on her, thanks to her clothes. The guy in the mask jumped back from the couple, not understanding what was happening and why the girl was not injured. Besides the guy, a couple more knights came up and told them that they would kill them. Because the masked guy tore the dress that her master had given her, Kana had tears in her eyes. She was so offended, and with all her strength, she hit him, so much so that he flew a couple of meters away. His partners immediately ran to his defense. They were about to attack her, but it was not to be. She told them, syllable by syllable, that they were weaklings. Creating a fiery spear, she attacked them, and most of them were defeated. One of them wanted to use air magic, but he didn't have a chance. Kana used wood magic, and he flew away. All the attackers were tied with branches. The girl asked them why they attacked them. The boy answered her for them that the attack was probably due to an investigation. Sumeragi called Baze again. Baze gave the letter to the brunette, He showed her the letter and said that they had proof of this. There was a loud stomping in the corridor, and a bang on the wall. The door opened. Dockham burst into the office, furious, and shouted how to understand that they found the real killer of Dolce. In the office were Rotten, Goliath, Jiban, Princess, and the Count. Goliath immediately put Dockham in his place, saying that he was in the presence of the Lord. Sumeragi smirked and waved his hand at Dokumu, asking if his hand had healed after his attack on Sumeragi. Face document skewed from anger. Dockham stared at Kana. She was overcome with tremors from his gaze. Lowering her eyes, she calmed down a little. Dengara said that he had gathered everyone that Sumeragi had asked for. Sakura asked Rotten where his wife and son were, to which he replied that his son said that he wanted to protect the princess, and so he allowed him to train with the squad. He said that he could call him. The young man replied that there was no need for that. Everyone stared at Sumeragi and waited for his answers. Tsukuku said that he would tell them everything, but first they had to swear to keep silent about what they would see now. Of course, everyone immediately agreed. The guy waved his hand. Bays appeared. Everyone immediately froze in shock, and Jiben immediately covered the Count with himself. Jiben shouted at the princess not to come near, and Altelia said that she had felt this ghost many times before, and that it did not pose a threat. Baze bowed to the princess and thanked her for her understanding. He introduced himself Servant Tsukuri. Suddenly there appeared Dolce. It was Baze who called his soul. Shocked, Altelius ran up and wanted to touch the boy, and Sumeragi explained that it was Dolce's soul that Baze had summoned. That's why you can't touch him. Altelius couldn't believe it. Sumeragi asked the princess to ask the boy a few questions that only she would know the answers to prove that he was indeed Dolce. She asked him what color the ball was. He answered bright green. Then she asked him what his late mother's name was. He answered Monica Abus. The boy apologized to the princess and the Count for leaving before them, tears streaming down his face. Dolce said that he wanted the princess and the Count to live a long life, and said that he could only be in this form, and asked to listen to his will. All the subjects burst into loud sobs. The brunette interrupted them, calling for them to continue. The Count looked at Sakura with slight irritation and allowed them to continue. The young man immediately asked if Kana had killed him. Kana and Dolce exchanged glances. No, sure, answered Boy. Dolce continued to say that it was a group of 3 people. He didn't know. He was told that Kana was waiting for him outside, and when he went outside the wall, the 3 surrounded him. After the attack, all 3 left, and one of them returned with Kana. And Kana was desperately trying to save him all this time. The Count asked Sumeragi who these people were. But then Dockham began to intervene in the conversation, asking him not to believe in the thing he had summoned. The Count immediately looked at him with a sharp gaze, and told him that he was now talking to Sumeragi Dano. The boy answered the question that he had discovered that they lived in the slums, and the Count immediately wanted to send Goliath there, but the boy interrupted him, telling the Count to listen to him until the end. The young man said that they were no longer in the slums or in the city. Then Dengaro shouted that they had really escaped. The guy waved his hand, and there appeared 3 ghosts appeared. Kana immediately recognized one of them, the one who brought her to the crime scene. Rotten, Jiben, Goliath also recognized. These were the people who testified against Kana in court. Dengaro immediately drew his sword and, screaming, wanted to attack them. But it was pointless. They had already been dead for a long time. The Count was furious. He couldn't help himself in his anger. He couldn't accept the fact that his son's killers were already dead. Then Sumeragi asked that to him, aloud finish report. The young man said that he had identified the real culprit. Sumeragi asked the question to both sides at once. He asked Dolce, who approached him near Eli's room, and said that Kana is waiting for you outside the walls. And then he asked the 3 killers who ordered them to kill Dolce. Sumeragi said, if that person is here now, point at him, and all 4 of them pointed at once. They pointed at Jiben. Everyone stood in shock and looked at him. Jiben immediately began to justify himself by saying that he knew nothing about it, that it was all part of the brunette's plan. Rotten and Goliath, stone-faced, said they would hear him out later. Joppen shouted why they not believe to him. Jiben took a step back and was about to run away, but it was not so easy. With one blow of the sword from Goliath, Jiben was already lying on the floor defeated. Goliath told him that his attempt to escape only confirmed his guilt, to which Jibin replied that he was not guilty of anything, that he was only following orders. Suddenly, Jibin screamed as if in pain. A second later, his head shattered into pieces. Everyone started looking at Goliath, telling him what he had done, but after a moment, everyone realized that it was not his fault. It was Dokyum who had cast a spell on him. Goliath began to tell Dokyum that Jibin could no longer do anything. Dokyum spread his hands, explaining that the spell takes effect after some time. Tsukuru told Dokyum that he could have cancelled it then. Dokyum countered by saying that he might have gone mad again, to which Sumeragi, launching paper airplanes, said that Dokyum really was an idiot. Sumeragi called upon Baze again, who in turn called upon the recently deceased Jiban. Dokuma's face turned pale and was distorted by bitterness and despair. Ron was already nowhere. The young man asked the Count if he had any questions to ask Jiban. The Lord closed his eyes and then asked what Jiban wanted to say, who ordered Dolce's death. Jiban answered what this was document. Jiban continued to explain that for killing Dolce, he was promised a rank higher than Goliath and Rotten. Dokum's face twisted into an evil grimace as he took Hana hostage a moment later, holding her by the neck and threatening to kill her in the same way as Jiban. All remained stand in a stupor. Sumeragi asked with a smirk if he was really going to hide behind the life of a maid. Rotten and Goliath even added that he had killed a man of noble blood and that the life of some servant was worth nothing. The princess begged him not to touch the servant. Dokum continued to hold the maid hostage, and the maid asked him not to think about her, and that she was not as good a person as the princess thought. Dokum pulled her with all his might and started yelling at her to stop talking. Hana began to confess that this criminal had threatened her and that he had ordered her to kill Sumeragi and Kana, but all her attempts failed. She screamed for them to ignore her and kill him. The Lord shouted out the names of Rotten and Goliath because a little more and Hana would be dead. Rotten. He jumped up and kicked Dokum in the arm. Hana flew back and Goliath caught her. The traitor immediately began to whine that he would die, that his hand was wounded. Dokum began to threaten the maids so that she would do something. And the Count, coming up to him, looked at him from top to bottom and asked if he had planned Dolce's murder. Dokum, without betraying his deceitful nature, began to ask for forgiveness with supposedly deep regret, and to say that he accidentally killed Jiban, and that in general this was all his trap. With unceasing anger in his eyes, he said that they could not trust a maid and some stranger who summons souls. The Lord started yelling at him to stop making excuses, that it was useless, and why was Sumeragi acting like a fool at a time like this? Meanwhile, the guy launched another airplane. Eli looked at it and saw that something was written on it. Eli opened the sheet and began to read. She read that this letter was addressed to Dokum. Picking up the airplane next to his leg, the Lord also opened the sheet and was shocked. This letter was from Eirik Fusel. Dokum, all sweaty, started yelling where he got this letter from. Sumeragi asked him if this meant a confession. The brunette began to put the puzzle together, telling that the person behind all this was Count Eirik Fusel. It was he who ordered Dokum to kill Dolce, and then Dokum ordered Jiban to commit the crime and lure Dolce out. The rest of the plan was entrusted to someone else, and suddenly Tsukuru summoned another letter. The young man began to read a fragment of the letter. It was written there that he would instigate the robbery of Altilius's cart and kill her, and subjugate the Abus family to someone from the Fusel family. Sumeragi finished reading and said that it was addressed to his dear niece Alicia. Poor Rotten immediately grabbed his head and could not believe that his relatives were involved in this. Cloud entered the room with a gloomy expression and said that his mother wanted to marry him to Alateris and make him the successor of the House of Ibis. To this, his father replied that he had already told his mother, the heir should be the eldest son of Dolce. Cloud firmly stated that he does not want to be a count. He dreams of becoming a knight like his father and grandfather. When he grows up, he will become a great knight and protect the Ibis family, the citizens, and his mother. Sumeragi turned to Rotten, asking what this meant and if he knew anything. Rotten was confused and realized that this was no joke, and thought of Alicia. He ran out of the room. The princess shouted after him and ran after him. The others were stunned and tried to stop them. During sword training, the son noticed his father, but the father ignored him and called out to Alicia. Rotten asked her if she had anything to do with it all. At that moment, the princess came running and called his name. He said that she left him no choice, and as a knight of the Ibis family, he had to kill her right now. The husband raised his sword against his frightened wife. Rotten rushed at her with the intent to kill, but at that moment Cloud stood up to protect her, was wounded, and fell to the ground. Seeing his son lying motionless, he was frightened, but remained adamant. The knight stood, threateningly raising his sword, looking at his son and wife. And Cloud did not understand why his father needed all this. The father ordered his son to step aside, or else he would have to kill him too. But Cloud refused. He reminded him that it was the knight's duty to protect the weak. At this moment, the princess came running and screamed, begging everyone to stop. The knight sharply told her that it was dangerous here and ordered her to stay away. He raised his sword and was about to strike, but his son's look, full of courage and determination, made him stop. He wavered, letting go of the sword, unable to kill them. The father knelt down and asked his son for forgiveness. The son felt both pain and relief at the same time. Rotten apologized to my lord for not being able to kill his wife and brought the sword to his own neck. He said he would atone for his guilt with his life and slit his throat right in front of everyone. The son was shocked. Cloud jumped up and ran to his father, calling him. He lay motionless, covered in blood. Milord ordered a healer to be called, and the knight immediately ran after him. Kana and the hero watched from afar. Kana looked at the hero and realized that he was not going to do anything. She ran to Rotten but was told that with her level it was useless. She began to chant and shouted the words, "Healing." At that moment, a flash of light appeared on Rotten's body, so bright that the entire castle was illuminated. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was shocked that Kana used high-level healing. The hero knew she had been training, but he didn't expect this. Cloud asked fearfully how his father was, to which Kana replied that he was fine, just unconscious. Cloud cried in relief. Milord turned to Alicia. He said that Eerie Fusel, Alicia's uncle, had planned Dolce's murder. Alicia was horrified and begged for forgiveness, explaining that she only learned of it after Dolce's death. Her uncle told her that she had no choice but to make Cloud the heir of the Ibis family. Milord was very angry. Milord shouted to his loyal knight Goliath to begin preparations for war. The knight immediately ran to carry out the order, but was stopped by Dolce. Nobody understood why Dolce stopped him. He tried to explain that war would only bring grief to people. He said that he didn't want to see the people of Elguria suffer because of him, and he didn't want a war to start. He remembered Sumeragi calling him and telling him that Kana was framed, and then he came back to save her. Dolce asked if his father hadn't thought the same thing. Father agreed that he wanted to save Kana and find the real culprit. Kana was stunned, but Dolce interrupted her and said that Sumeragi had already told her everything and thanked her. Dolce said that thanks to Kana's persistence, Rotten's life was saved, and that she had nothing to cry about or apologize for. He asked her to smile, and she smiled through her tears. At parting, he said that he was glad to have the opportunity to say goodbye to everyone. He asked to protect the city and the people he loved. Dokkum was angry that the Messiah was dead, Canaan was in exile, Ibas's child was dead, and all that was left was to get rid of Canaan, who had become a slave. He thought that if this guy had never come to their city, he bared his teeth in anger. Sumeragi wasn't here because he wanted to. The sword suggested that since the case was closed, it was time to go and kill the bastard along with his god, and he agreed. Carefully removing the collar from Canaan's neck, her father's old friend said that now she was completely free forever. He added that he had prepared new clothes for her. When Kana saw them, she was stunned because they were the same clothes that had been torn when she was captured. She was told that Lord Sumeragi had patched them up and strengthened them, and she was very touched and hugged the clothes. Milord thanked the hero for the service rendered and said that they had detained 20 people who worked with Dokkum. Now the Ibis family has half as many members. He also added that Rotten had resigned, stating that he was ready to bear full responsibility along with his wife. Sumeragi added that it was better not to start a war. He has no intention of fighting, since Dolce has already stopped him. Instead, he wants to blame the conspirators for the attack on the royal family, although the evidence is insufficient. Since Eirik had been doing dark things for a long time, Milord wanted the hero to find more evidence. The hero was not thrilled and asked again if they really wanted him to continue searching or what. Milord confirmed it. Lord Dingara asked for help once more and promised to pay 30 million in gold. The hero didn't care, but the sword was happy, because for that money he could buy a house, or even 2. He thought that it would be better to spend money than lives, and agreed. My lord was very happy and counted on him. Sumeragi placed a stack of papers on the table, which left the my lord dumbfounded. He did not understand what they were or where they came from. He explained that they were evidence of Eirik Fusel's crimes, describing his illegal trade, slave trade, drug production, and trafficking. My lord asked where these documents came from and whether the hero could control time. He replied that he had already asked bees to help find them. He also asked for payment for the work done, and my lord paid immediately. The hero also wanted to clarify about Kanan. My lord replied that her room was already ready, and if she wanted to return, they would be only too happy. The princess happily took Kanan's hands, congratulating her on her return. Kanan thanked Mrs. Alateris and asked if she was tired and would like some tea or anything else. She added that she was ready to return to work at any time. Althea said that her father was most likely still away, and she could return to work after the paperwork was completed. They entered the room together, and before Alateris had time to call her father, Kanan began to ask for forgiveness. She said that she wanted to go with the hero, although the princess and Sumeragi did not understand why she said this. The hero said that their contract was over and they did not owe each other anything, but Kanan wished to go with him or let him make her his slave again. She said that she would be very lonely in this city without him. Sword agreed with her. She also added that he was lonely, because she felt betrayed when she hated everyone. That's why she didn't want to leave him alone. She asked permission to go with him. Sumeragi asked if she knew what he was going to do. She said no, but she assumed it was something terrible. That was fine with her. Even if the entire world and God himself became his enemies, she would not turn her back on him. Just as he had once saved her, she wanted to repay him in kind. He asked if the others agreed. The princess was shocked and scolded him for not seeing that she was worried about him. Why did he make the girl blush and say such things? My lord remembered how he fell in love with his wife, how they got married and swore eternal love. They didn't care what others said. It was a wonderful time, the hero said, that he would have to leave Kanan if she slowed him down, to which she agreed and was very happy. My lord was saying that there was some trouble she might encounter when there was a knock at the door. In came the butler, the warrior, and with them Hannah, who wished to go with Lord Sumeragi. But he didn't understand why she wanted to go with him, since Hannah had tried to kill him. My lord explained it by her hard fate, adding that although she had tried to poison Lord Sumeragi, she had already been punished. But the truth was that she was innocent in a sense, since Dokkum had taken her sister hostage and blackmailed her. Knowing this, my lord decided to give her a chance. By giving herself to Lord Sumeragi, she could atone for her sins. The princess stood up for her, saying that she only did it for her sister, but he didn't really care, so he asked his slave what she thought. She hesitated because she was trying to take someone's life, but approved, saying that Hannah would work hard until she died. Perhaps no one will ever buy her back and help her like they helped her. It's cruel, so if Mr. Sumeragi refuses, she will try to buy her back herself and look after her as a servant of the Ibis house. He agreed for her to follow him only on the condition that she would not disobey him. And he asked if there was a problem with that, to which Hannah agreed. At that moment, Hannah bowed down and swore allegiance to Lord Sumeragi for the rest of her life. Kanan was very happy about this. Seidel was shocked that Kanan was going to be made a slave again, even formally. He reminded Sumeragi that violence and coercion were severely punished in this country, and that he wanted to keep in touch with him and monitor what was happening to Kanan. He threatened to get him out of the ground if anything happened to her, and in return he received a promise and a request not to worry. He also asked him to be careful when he left the city, and if he needed anything, he could always come to him. Sumeragi said that he understood everything and would be careful, but before they left, they needed to do something. My lord asked Lord Sumeragi one more favor before leaving. Concerning the army, after losing so many men in Rotten's departure, the troops' morale was low, and Goliath alone could not lead the army. Although they did not want to start a war, they would not be able to defend the city if attacked, so he asked Sumeragi to train the army in the art of war. Besides, he wanted to see his son again. Cloud went to his father's door, knocked, and said that his grandmother had brought food, but there was no answer. Someone knocked on the front door. Cloud opened it and saw Sumeragi with Kanan. And Hannah, the guy was surprised. The hero entered the house and asked where Rotten was, and the son replied that his father was upstairs in his room. He got up, broke the door, and saw the surprised warrior sitting and looking at him. Rotten was shocked. as he had increased security and ordered that no one be allowed in. To this, Sumeragi responded that the security was too weak, and since his subordinates are weak, he must make them stronger. Rotten did not understand what they wanted from him. How could he teach someone if he himself was expelled from the army? The hero did not give him a choice and dragged him along with him. The hero dragged the warrior along with him, and everyone watching was shocked. But Kanan told her son not to worry and to trust her mentor. Rotten followed him, not understanding what was happening. But when he saw the warriors who were waiting for him, he was stunned. Everyone was happy about his return and complained about how hard it was without him. Even Goliath admitted that it was better with him. Now that neither he nor Jeben were gone, all the responsibility fell on him, and it was hard. He was told that the Count and the Princess were waiting for his return, but he replied that he was guilty of Mr. Dolce's death and unworthy of serving the Ibas family. Kanan asked what the hero was going to do now, but he was angry. He didn't understand why he should help anyone. He himself survived in the forest, wallowing in the mud, and now listening to the warrior give up seemed like a mockery to him. He remembered his childhood friend, who could irritate him just as much. Goliath asked why the hero did not leave. Sumeragi replied that he had enough, and that everyone would go with him to train tomorrow. He also asked the former captain if he could at least do that. He said that training would begin at dawn in the great forest of Borf. In the capital of the Sunset Kingdom, Luke Sandel, the heroes were training. Some were annoyed by this, and they looked at the heroes with displeasure. But even they were not omnipotent, as it seemed to others, because every time they were injured, Ichinose healed them, but her powers were also depleted from constant use. They were suddenly transported to another world, and since then they trained every day until they were exhausted. They did not understand why they had to fight the Demon Lord. Ichinose's legs were buckling, but Mickey managed to catch her and scolded her for working until she was exhausted. Suzuno said that she could only heal, unlike the others. Then she remembered Tsukuru, how he was there, what he was doing there alone, and no one knew where he was. Mickey noticed this and asked if Suzuno was still worried about him, and then the question immediately arose, is he by any chance her boyfriend? To which Suzuno immediately replied that he was just her childhood friend. Mickey said that he was probably fine, since his luck was rated at S level. She advised Suzuno to first get herself in order and do something about those dark bags under her eyes. After all, she was such a beautiful girl, so let it stay that way. Her prayers were with him and served as a talisman. Sumerags with warriors had already arrived in the forest of Borf. He and his maids watched their training from the top of the cliff. Kanan was worried if everything would be okay with the warriors, since they were left with the predators. But the hero replied that they were soldiers and had to prove that they deserved their share of bread. Hannah asked if she should join the training, but the hero replied that he had other plans for her. They would leave the warriors here and go save her sister. They approached Fusel's castle, looking at it from afar. Kanan asked if her sister was being held here, and Hannah wanted to go with them if the master did not mind. He answered, since this is her sister, of course she will go with them, because they simply came to take her, because she is being held hostage. Hannah thanked the master and they activated their stealth skills, but Kanan had no such skills and was shocked at how they disappeared. The wolf explained that for her, as a wolf, this was a common thing, so the hero gave her his hermit's cloak, which had the ability to disguise itself. Kanan was interested in the fact that the guards did not see them, because they entered the castle so easily. This place where everything sparkled so much that it hurt the eyes, and in the middle of the large hall stood a golden statue of the owner. The hero said that he had terrible taste, and the others agreed with him. Sonya had already told her sister about this, but she didn't think it was really that bad. She assumed that her sister should be around here somewhere. Sumeragi agreed with this. He called Baze. The Reaper confirmed that Sonya was in the basement. He also added that there was no place he couldn't find. Going down the stairs, they saw the cage where Sonya was kept. The sister began to look for the keys worriedly, but the master said that this was not necessary, because he would open the cage with his hands, using the skill of strength. Hannah tried to wake up her sister, but to no avail. Kanan offered to heal her, but the hero stopped her, since they could be noticed due to the use of magic. Sumeragi suggested that they get out of here first, but when he saw Hannah's sister, he was stunned. Looking at the unconscious wolf, he said Ayumi's name. The girls didn't understand what he was talking about. His life was a complete mess. When he thought he had found happiness, it fell apart. The second time, he thought he would now achieve his happiness. But it fell apart again, and now there was nothing left. And in the end, when he thought things couldn't get any worse, but this time they stole the world he lived in, his freedom and his right to life. At least, that's what he thought until he saw a she-wolf who looked so much like Ayumi. As it turned out, someone was looking at them with great interest through a mirror. It was a deity who admired him. She was worried about what had happened, what to expect next from Sumeragi Tsukuru. After all, her world is a high plane of heaven, and there is always an atmosphere of worthy health. It had been a long time since her younger brother Susano had been exiled, and she had begun to rule this world. There were things she regretted, but it was all for the sake of this world they were now enjoying. Suddenly, alcohol began to fly around the machine, and the surprised mistress realized what was going on. The girls fainted, and the maids were worried about what was happening. Mikoto-sama ordered everyone to restore the space-time wall. Otherwise, this world would end. Sometimes several people are transferred to another world. In ancient Japan, it was called spirited away. And everything would be fine if they transferred 1 or 2 people every couple of decades, but recently 100 people were transferred through a summoning ritual. Because of each such transfer, the wall breaks. And since many people were transferred at once, and this happened many times, then the Earth and this world are on the verge of collapse. Even the slightest change on Earth would harm this world. And if the Earth collapsed, it would also affect their world. Yet she couldn't think of any ideas on how to solve this problem. The maids spoke discontentedly about how all the gods of the new world were rotten to the core, and if large-scale appeals continued, the wall dividing space and time would not hold up. To which the goddess replied that if the gods of this world did not come to their senses, she would do something about it. She was informed that the number of people summoned this time was 108. To which she replied that every time she tried to intervene, her power was always reflected, and so she had been unable to do anything until now. In the mirror, she saw that one of the transferred people had benefited the least from the summoning, and that his life had been very miserable. She found out that his hobby was cooking, so she gave him powers related to cooking, and then she raised his luck to the maximum. She was sure that with this he should be able to overcome all adversity. She wanted to give him something else, but she was interrupted, saying that this was enough. She herself knew that if she gave him more, his body and mind would not be able to bear it. In that case, she set up a divine protection, and said that only when his body and mind were ready would she grant it. And that even if he was in a sealed state, it should greatly increase his strength. She looked in the mirror and was very happy. Because she had been waiting for this hour for so long, she said that he should come quickly and punish all these rotten gods. She also added that she would spare no effort to help him, and let them know the punishment and sorrow for calling so many people. She got carried away and stopped behaving appropriately, and said that they should be more careful. The team returned to the estate. Prill brought water and a clean towel for Hannah's little sister, who was still unconscious on the bed. Her sister was looking after her. Also sleeping on the couch in the next room were Kanan and Sumeragi, who was very worried about Sanya. Our hero was reminiscing about the old days, how he came home and saw a note saying that they had gone shopping to celebrate his efforts in the entrance exams, and that she had prepared a feast. Upon seeing the note, he immediately went to the kitchen to see what was wrong with the food, and thought that his mother had messed up the seasonings again, and that he would have to fix it before they got back. When he was fixing his food, the phone rang. He went over and picked it up. What he heard on the phone shocked him. The ladle fell on the floor because he was informed about a car accident. As it turned out, the truck driver was distracted and crashed into the car. In the car were his parents and younger sister. This family took in the son of their deceased friend and raised him as their own. Even he and Ayumi were like brother and sister. Everyone wondered, what will Tsukuru do now? He woke up in tears from the memory, and Kanan stood next to him worried and said that Sanya had woken up. She was very worried and wanted to ask what happened, but he interrupted her, saying that everything was fine and there was no need to worry. They entered the room where Hannah and Sanya were. The sister jumped up and immediately thanked him for saving her younger sister. She thanked the master and Kanan again, and also said that she was in his debt. He asked her to stop thanking him, and that this was food for her, and in his hands he had hot porridge that was easy to digest. He said that this was food from his homeland, and that now it should be suitable for Sanya, to which he again heard words of gratitude from both sisters. She took a spoon, tried the hot porridge, and immediately exclaimed how delicious it was and began to eat it. Sister also added that the rice was very soft and delicious, and that Sister should definitely try it too. Kanan also had an appetite, but Sister said it was okay. Let her eat first herself. The more he looked at her, the more he saw Ayumi in her. But he had seen her lifeless and cold body with his own eyes. She was all cold and pale, he thought. But he still cherished the hope that if summoning to another world was possible, could this be possible too? He asked if she needed anything else. He asked Sonya if she knew a country called Japan, to which she replied that she had never heard of it. He asked if she had lived in that country, or if she had amnesia, or if she had been found here, or maybe she had some memories left. Sister interrupted him, saying that they were sisters and grew up together, born from the same mother's womb. Even when their paths diverged and they ended up in different families, like Ibas and Fusel. Sakura said that he understood everything, but wondered if she was just a stranger then, who looked so much like Ayumi. They wondered why he was asking such strange questions, which he did not want to answer. He apologized for asking them and told them to eat the food while it was still warm. He left the room, and Kanan ran out after him, asking her to wait. While going down the stairs, Kanan, still worried, followed him and said that he had been acting strange ever since they saved Sonya-san, and if she could find out the reason for it, to which he responded positively, and then he simply said that she was strikingly similar to one of his acquaintances, and that he had simply made a mistake. She was a little surprised, but the gentleman immediately said that they should quickly return to the forest before nightfall, since Mr. Rotten and the others were there. Following him, she said that she still hoped that he would be able to tell her when he wanted the real reason for his behavior. He agreed and went on. In the great forest of Borf, the battle against the monsters continued. The commander shouted furiously to everyone that they should not be afraid, that if they tried to escape, they might die. The archers protected the rear, the healers treated the wounded, the warriors were in the vanguard. They all shouted that they had to continue fighting until defeat and put their honor as a knight of the Ibis family on the line. Kanan and her master watched all this from a tree, and so the monster fell dead with a crash, and they defeated it. In connection with this, everyone's level began to rise. Everyone rejoiced, shouting loudly near the defeated giant. Everyone happily thanked Sumeragi Dono and happily exclaimed that everyone's level had now exceeded 100, and that it was now their turn to teach the others. That they had even killed the great bird with a level of 140, so they had nothing to fear anymore. While everyone was happily shouting that they should have a party when they got back, some added that the great bird's meat was very tasty and they wanted to try it. Rotten and his faithful friend, watching this, shook their heads, both proud and laughing. The former commander even felt a little sad. Everyone returned to the castle with their heads held high. The last to go was former Captain Rotten, but he did not enter the Ibas family estate. The soldiers who noticed this called him, to which he said that his duty was already done, and his role was over. All the fighters returned safe and sound, and they all carried out the master's orders. And his family has already put the master's life in danger, and he is no longer worthy of setting foot on the territory of the Ibas family. The former captain said that they were all strong enough, and his help was no longer needed. To which the hero laughed, and said that not only the knights had become stronger, but he too. Someone from behind said that everything was as Sumeragi Dono had said. Everyone turned around sharply, and it turned out to be the prince and his daughter. He said that he was afraid to let a person with such a high level walk the streets. And he said that he also understood why he did not want to return, and therefore he wanted Rotten to lead a new squad of city guards, which surprised him very much. He also said that people had been telling him that bears had recently appeared in the city, and he could help patrol the area and destroy these bears. "We cannot afford to lose our precious inhabitants. What should they do?" added the princess. The warrior wanted to object, but his master interrupted him. He said that he knew what kind of person he was because he had taken care of him since he was born. And it would be a pity for Cloud, because he wanted to become a knight, and he had a bright future. His faithful friend shook him well, and hitting him from behind, he said to Rotten, so that he would not dare to refuse their master's offer. Remembering his son, he made up his mind. He thanked his master and said that from now on he would be his sword for the rest of his days. At home, Cloud and his grandmother were very happy with such good news. And in the castle, Hannah and her sister ate delicious food, prepared by their master, and learned different skills, like the strong arm and fast foot of the younger one, and strengthening the body of the older one, adding how delicious it was, and that their master's food was the best in the world, although sister sometimes tried to calm her sister down and asked her to behave normally. The hero noticed that, even with the healing effects of his food, she had recovered very well after being released. They replied that this was because they were wolves, and needed only a little water and food to survive. In addition, Sonya had not received any serious injuries. The youngest said that she didn't expect to be kidnapped while she was sleeping, and if she woke up, she would have already hit them as many times as they hit her. To which the master said that they did not need to worry about this, because he also stole everything from furniture to wallpaper, and the accusatory letter already sent to the king probably reached. The sisters were shocked, because this was the end for him. She asked guiltily if she should have woken her up when they were still there, but little sister said no, that everything is fine if Hee-chan and the others punish them instead of her, then everything is fine. After all, now she can eat delicious food every day, so she is happy, and that she is even glad that she was able to endure the conditions in Fusel's house. The hero and his faithful servant were shocked that she wanted to go with them, because it would have been safer to stay in the city, to which she screamed in fear that it was unfair and that they wanted to leave her here alone. Her sister asked her not to be selfish, but she began to cry and beg the owner to take her with him. Because of the memories that flooded him, the wolf's face reminded him of his sister from Japan, and he could not resist her. Well, the master immediately agreed, and Kanan was shocked by such a quick answer. But the little girl was happy and thanked her master, because of which others made fun of him, whether he was a lolicon, to which the answer followed immediately that this was not so. He then prepared equipment for them and asked them what they liked, and asked them to choose clothes using the catalog as a reference. Hana-san wanted to continue wearing the maid outfit, and Sanya-san wanted to wear light leather armor. He saw their status in the window, which said that after strengthening, the older one was level 28, and the younger one was only level 8. Someone approached them and asked if they were leaving already. Dengaru-sama and Astilia-sama came to say goodbye and said that they would welcome them any time they had free time. The princess also added that she would pray that he would remain in good health until the next time they met, and that as long as he had the Ibis dagger, he would be treated as part of their family. He agreed. The princess hugged her maids goodbye and said that they could return home whenever they wanted. She added that she already considered them her beloved sisters. The girls were very happy and agreed. Everyone watching was also very happy about it. Also, all the acquaintances they met along the way said goodbye to them. And now that they were ready, the four of them set out on their journey. When the master was asked where they were going, he replied that they were going to the great forest of Borfa. They were not particularly pleased with this. Their master said that they first need to train the sisters, because right now, to be honest, they are just a burden. And he also added that it hurts to leave a city full of animal ears, and he added that he wants to distract himself from them. To which the sisters pointed to their ears and tails, and Kanan wanted her ears to become like those of she-wolves and stretched them. Suddenly the shadow of something large in the sky fell on them, and their gaze fell on him, where the great bird was soaring high. It seemed that it was flying somewhere with purpose. It was strange because they don't usually fly near villages, for they live only in the deep part of the wolf forest of Borf. And only when they saw the direction of the bird's flight, they realized that they were heading towards the city of Allegria. Hannah was surprised to see the great bird. Kanan confirmed and said that they usually live deep in the great forest of Borf, and it was unclear why it was so close to the human settlement now. They noticed that it was flying to the city of Allegria. The sisters became worried and just started talking about how they had to hurry to the city, because it was in danger. As Kanan said that she would do everything herself. With the help of wind magic, she flew up very quickly, approaching the great bird. She used the spear of fire on the birds that were flying in the sky, and then hit them right on target. The great bird looked like a roasted chicken. As soon as she hit them with her magic, she began to rejoice, but before she could even shout that she had done it, she realized that she was falling and flew down with a squeal. Sumeragi caught her, and she thanked her master. The sisters shouted to the master and Kanan how cool they were when they were told to look behind them. At that moment, two boars appeared behind the sisters, and before they had time to get scared, the boars were caught by ribbons. It was Besse who caught them, saying that it was close. Besse turned out to be the undead of the master, and he said that this place was quite dangerous, and he examined this area. He said that many monsters had united and were heading here. Kanan said that they couldn't be let into the city, otherwise there would be casualties. And no matter how strong Goliath and the others were, it would be quite difficult, because they still had a limit. The hero said that he would not tolerate the people he trained dying from these monsters. And he ordered Kanan to get ready, but she didn't understand what to get ready for. The master said that he didn't know why these monsters were heading to the city, but they were going to intercept them here. A horde of monsters was approaching them. She told the girls to hide behind her, and they did so. Kanan said that she would burn them all to ashes and use the magic of the flame storm. The power from the magic was so strong that it burned everything for several kilometers further, which horrified the sisters. Meanwhile, our hero dealt with the rest of the monsters with the sword. The sisters said that although they had strength and could fight, they could not do anything like that, and whether they could become like them if they trained enough. At that time, their master shouted that they also needed to fight, and that it was time for training, to which they agreed and were very serious. The hero told Hannah to kill the silver elephant with a level of 230, and at low power, he struck it with his sword. He said that he would weaken it, so let her focus on delivering the final blow, and used wood magic and dark link. And now that everything was ready, Hannah rushed towards the elephant. While she was striking, she used the skill of body strengthening, strong arm, Herculean strength, and fast speed. After that, she struck and pierced the elephant, causing her to be shocked, and the arm she struck was also badly injured. She was terrified, because she had lost her right arm, and also because her strength had increased so dramatically. Notifications were coming out that she had increased her level, and worried girls were already running to help her. The sword said that she had increased her strength too much. Her body simply could not bear it, because the human body is such a fragile thing. The hero said that this happens when you go too far, and with his perfect cooking skill, he served her food and asked her to eat it. She was in a lot of pain, and she couldn't even get up and eat anything, to which he said that if she didn't eat this food now, she would most likely die. The shocked little sister took the food and shoved it into her mouth, telling her to hurry up and eat it, or at least just swallow it. And the hand immediately began to grow back and became normal again. The sisters were shocked by how quickly the hand appeared and healed. Their master told her to finish eating everything that was left, and she began to apologize for everything. But he said that it was his fault. Kanan came up to her with a grim expression and said that he was very kind to her, dissatisfied with the fact that her training was Spartan and she had to heal herself without anyone's help, to which he said that he helped her because Hannah did not have the ability to heal, and that he helped her when she was in trouble too. She did not deny it. He said that the monsters were still here, and they should finish them off once and for all, offering her onigiri. She happily went to eat her onigiri. The master offered them to the sisters as well, saying that these onigiri could increase their endurance, and if they could, they should eat them too, and so they did. The hero said that the monster sold Sherry a level 220 for Sani's training and told her not to be reckless, which she did very well. She was very happy that her level had risen, although her sister reminded her that she needed to do it more seriously, because otherwise she could get hurt. The younger one said that it was the older one who hurt her, because she was injured through carelessness. Kanan, who was watching, was surprised by their synchronicity, saying that it was because they were sisters, or because they were wolves. He thought that although they acted in sync, Sanya was looking away during the battle, not to mention the number of these monsters. He thought that it was not normal that the monsters did not get tired, and arrived even though they interrupted their movement, and asked to find out the reason from the undead. He hoped that everything would be okay, but at that moment, the youngest girl slipped on the blood on the ground and fell as the fox monster attacked her. In a split second, flashbacks of him burying Ayumi flashed before his eyes. He ran to her aid in a flash, and stood between the monster and her. When she opened her eyes, her master was already in front of her, and her sister was beating the monster that attacked them. In the confusion, Kanan ran up to ask if they were okay. She was scared that it was blood and that it happened because she was careless, but he calmed her down, saying that it was just a scratch and he would quickly heal the wound, and that the main thing was that she was not hurt. There were more monsters approaching, and he said that they needed to maintain their fighting spirit and finish them off. During lunch, he made a curry. The girls were very happy about it. He said he had plenty more ingredients and to eat as much as they wanted. Hannah said she had also made side dishes and desserts. Kanan had much more food than the others, but she was so happy about it and said that this was her size. The youngest was delighted and wanted the same, but her sister did not allow it, since she would not be able to eat as much. During dinner they all talked cheerfully about food, etc., and in the evening the master put a concealment presence on their tent and on the area. The sword asked what was bothering him. The sword said that he had been acting strangely since he met the youngest of the sisters, risking his life for her, which was completely unlike him. He asked him not to talk nonsense, but the sword did not listen, and added that it was connected to him and could tell that his mind was screaming in agony, and whether he had fallen in love with this girl. At which the master was very angry. He started yelling at him that it wasn't like that, and that he wasn't looking at her like that. Sword said that it was just a joke, that he only wanted to break the ice and that he shouldn't worry so much or he'd wake up the girls. He suddenly felt something was wrong and ran out of the tent. The girls also woke up and did not understand what had happened. Beze hurried to his master. In the sky he saw his undead and an elf. She was surprised that it was a human tribe, and asked if they were the ones who destroyed the forest. She asked again if they were the ones who destroyed the forest. Bees asked to run. He also wanted to say that she was, but before he could finish, he began to disappear. Sumeragi realized that Beze was safe. He simply went into the shadows because the sword still sensed him. The elf said that this was a great forest, the home of the elves, and that they could kill the monsters elsewhere without destroying their home. So they will pay for this with their lives, she said, and attacked him. He was able to parry the blow. He asked why she was attacking him, to which she was surprised how he blocked her attack. It was a defense, and he was actually a human, she wondered, to which he said not to ignore him, but he was also worried about his maids. He thought that they would die from such attacks. He should get away from them. For destroying the forest, they should be punished for what they did. Now he attacked and asked if she knew what she was talking about, since it was the monsters that attacked them, and they had no choice but to fight them. It was self-defense. She called them stupid, and said that she would make sure they died quickly and painlessly. Because she flies, it is difficult to get close to her, and her wind magic blocks all his magical attacks. To which the sword reminded him that he can use his ability. The hero was unhappy that he was being reminded of something he already knew, and he looked at her detailed assessment. Her name was Anthea. She was an ancient elf of level 415, a guardian elf who loved challenges. He asked the sword how ancient elves differed from ordinary elves, to which the sword said that ancient elves are the founders of the elf race, and she is one of them. Now it is clear why Beast could not defeat her, because she is very strong. She was unhappy that he made an assessment of her ability. He was shocked that she found out about it. Her level was 100 higher, and what kind of reincarnation skill she had, he didn't even know how to attack her. She was unhappy that he ignored her questions, and she asked him to just die by unleashing a hurricane on him. The 3 big whirlwinds were taking the master. The worried girls could do nothing to help him. The youngest one was about to run after him, but she was stopped and told that they were much weaker than this elf and would only hinder him. All they could do was believe in him and wait. He attacked again. The sword asked him to look at his opponent more closely, to which he said that he didn't have to say that, and fell to the ground with a thud. He had already been tested in many ways since he came to this world, and the sword didn't have to ask him how he felt. He had to do something by now. And he shouted at her that he would not die until he destroyed her, and used earth magic and dark magic at the same time. She was surprised that he still resisted. He attacked again. She emotionlessly said it was futile and cut off his hand. As soon as she did this, more copies of him appeared everywhere from all directions. He tried to stop her with illusions. How clever of him, she said she could defeat them all at once. Of course she could defeat them all if she killed them all at once. But before she could do that, he pierced her with his sword and said that it was the end. He went down to look at her, but instinct kept him from approaching, and he was right. She looked at him and asked if he would finish her. He said that he had already dealt her a mortal wound, and that he assumed it was because of her reincarnation skill. She said that she didn't think she would lose to a human, and that he was right, that because of the reincarnation skill she was still alive. But if he tried to kill her again, she would die. He asked why she was telling him this, since the weak must always die in the end. It seemed to him that she was not telling him something, because if everything were that simple, he would have killed her with one blow. She laughed loudly that the sword was afraid that something might be wrong with her, and said, "It seems she stepped on the lion's tail. And her name is Anthea, and she belongs to the race of ancient elves." She asked him his name, and he answered Tsukuru Sumiragi. She said that she gave up and he could do whatever he wanted with her. They returned to the tent, where the maids were screaming, asking how she could hold their master hostage, to which she laughed and said what lovely ladies were coming to them. Our hero stopped them, although they, despite this, continued to fight, declaring that they would fight for him to the last. She asked them what they would do with her, whether they would hunt her like the monsters in the great forest, to which the girls said that they didn't understand what she was talking about. Sumiragi said that she hadn't listened to what he was talking about, to which she replied that she wanted to know what he would say then. On the orders of the Lord, Bezi explored the great forest. The Lord asked if he found out who controlled those monsters, to which the surprised fairy asked if they hadn't created them. He replied no, that if they had, they wouldn't have protected the village and risked their lives trying to exterminate them. The undead said that there was no trace of anyone in the forest who could control them, but for a moment he felt the presence of a demon. To this the fairy said that demons can easily take over the mind of any creature, and asked what kind of demon it was. He angrily said that he tried to tell about it earlier, but out of nowhere an ancient elf appeared and prevented him. And what else could the fairy do after she saw the ghost? She did not think that he could serve a man. In any case, now they are not enemies, and he suggested that they calm down and talk calmly. She agreed. She apologized for attacking them and welcomed them to the elf village. Everyone admired the beauty of the forest and their village, but suddenly they were frightened by the fact that a man was lying on the ground and greeting the queen while lying down. She ordered him to find out how the villagers were feeling, and the servant immediately stood up and, bowing to her, ran away. Everyone was surprised that she really was a queen, when suddenly the cute little elves ran up and asked if she had already defeated those monsters. To which the queen said that they should not worry, the monsters would not come to their village anymore, and they could be sure of that. Sumiragi asked when the last time someone outside had set foot in the elven territory had been, and if it had been a long time. She replied that the elves never interfered in the world's external affairs, tried to live in peace and quiet, and did not associate with other races. In other words, they were shut-ins, he thought, but the demon had decided to attack them from the outside. Because of this, not only they suffered, but also the tribes of humans and beastmen. Although perhaps this was a mistake, and not the entire race of demons attacked, but one specific one. This cannot be a mistake, she said, because that demon did not attack other races, but specifically them. They did not understand what was being discussed, and she began to tell that this was a very long story that must begin with the time of the Battle of the Gods. 1,000 years ago, a battle took place between the main species, an alliance of giant and demon tribes against dwarves, humans, beastmen, and elves. This fight was later called the Battle of the Gods. After 100 years, the alliance was able to win, but one of the 3 continents was destroyed. This caused serious damage to the remaining tribes. The giants and demons were driven to the east, to the desert continent. After that battle, the alliance of 4 races guarded their territories and declared war on the other 2, who began to look for rich lands to seize. 4 of the 6 coalitions agreed not to interfere in each other's affairs and to coexist peacefully, but over the past hundreds of years, suspicious movements have been noticed on the part of the human race. No one knew what the humans were planning, whether they wanted to increase their magical power or their population, but if they were planning a war between the 4 alliances, then bloodshed on this continent would be inevitable. Then, the other 2 alliances would take advantage of the opportunity to expand their borders and join the battle as well. Most likely, the demons did not know about this yet, and decided to take over the elven territory before they entered into battle with the others. If her guess is correct, then all 4 alliances will have to unite to resist the demons, and they must not allow another war like the one in the past. Sumiragi sat by the pond and thought about what the princess had said. He said it was none of his business when she approached him. She called her master. It was Kanan. She seemed to have seen something in the river, to which he said that there was nothing there. She said that she would never have thought that she would visit the village of elves, much less hear the story told by Anthea. He asked if she wanted to go back to her village, to which she answered No, because he wanted to help the princess, although he himself did not know what to do yet. She said that she knew that he came from another world. In her captivity, she heard a story about a hero being summoned to protect them from the Demon King, and the name of the hero that was summoned was very similar to his. That meant that he was the master that was summoned from another world. He admitted that he had indeed been summoned from another world, but he was no hero at all. When he came to this world, he was simply confused and did not know who he was, where he was, how to fight the monsters. He was abandoned, and he was left alone in the great forest, not knowing where to go. The maid did not understand how they abandoned him. It was inhumane. He agreed, but added, "Is this how a hero should behave?" It was hard for him. He didn't know how to use magic, he didn't know how to hold a sword properly, he was afraid of monsters, and he couldn't stand up for himself. He was attacked by animals many times, and he almost died of hunger. But every time he overcame his fear, fought, and tried to survive. He wasn't going to save this world, he just wanted to take revenge on those who made him go through all this. But in the end, he saved Kanan and Sonia. He also saved the city and the people of Algeria, and they are all very grateful to him. She said that for her, he is the bravest person, and she is very sorry that he had to go through all this alone, and that she would never forgive herself for not being able to be there. Sonia jumped up behind her and also began to ask for forgiveness. As it turned out, both the sisters and the princess had heard the story and asked for forgiveness. Hannah said that if it was true, she was also very sorry. The princess joined in and asked if she could apologize too, because she saw how much he was loved and would wait her turn. And seriously, if he was able to survive in the great forest, it meant that he was not summoned to this world in vain. He really could help them confront the Demon King, and she was ready to follow him. Everyone was shocked by the princess's words. But she added that her knowledge and strength would not be superfluous, and this made sense. And the gentleman, according to her, already had a whole harem, to which he was displeased and asked not to say such embarrassing things. The princess, looking thoughtfully into the distance, thought that if they had summoned a hero, then defeating the enemies would now be much easier. I wonder if that was true. But no one yet knew that a great danger was approaching them in the form of a giant. The nearest servant, as it turned out, was looking for them to call them to the table. The food was ready. The girls were delighted with the dishes prepared by the elves, and the servant invited them to have a good meal. In front of them lay a large baked caterpillar. The servant explained that they had hunted it specifically so that the guests could try it, and had baked it carefully to get a crispy crust. Although it was clear from the girls' faces that they did not like such a delicacy. The children asked if the princess would go with them, as she would need to eat too. The princess decided to travel a bit and get to know the human race better. She added that human life was too short, and so she would return in less than 100 years, before they would even notice her absence, and asked them to take care of everyone while she was gone. The sword commented that she was leaving for 100 years, but she spoke as if she was going for a walk. Sukuru mentally responded that he was a sword with no lifespan. The girls refused to eat the insects, saying that they were not hungry enough to eat bugs. He thought that during his wanderings in the forest he had eaten worse things, and that he did not have much choice. He thanked the elves for their efforts, and said that in gratitude he would allow him to cook one monster. The elves were unhappy and said that they would not allow them to do this. Then he asked them not to worry so much, and suggested that they take it as a parting gift from the cook. He pulled out a large spider from the storage room. Everyone was scared, whispering that the spider had a strong body, and it was not so easy to defeat it. But he added that he knew how to deal with it. He decided to do a favor and cut the spider into portions. The elves were shocked by how easily he cut it, this iron cancer-like paper, and how sharp his sword was. Then he started cooking. Using the magic of cooking, he created a variety of dishes, from spider in batter, in tomato sauce, and several other variations. He invited everyone to sit at the table. The elves were delighted with the taste. The meat was sweet and juicy, the sauce was perfect. Even the sashimi tasted great. The dishes were magnificent. They did not expect that the same meat could be prepared so differently and so deliciously. The maids also ate well, the princess admitting that he was a natural cook. The elven food also looked quite tasty, he noted, to which the princess replied that their cooking could not compare with his. He thought that the cook might have overcooked the meat, making it tough, and it would be better to cook it medium rare. Hannah approached him. She announced that their training was officially complete and they had successfully completed it. Now the question arose of where they were going to go, leaving the elf village. Kanan suggested heading to the land of the summoned heroes. Sonya added that it was the crude empire, where the human race lived. Hannah noted that it was far to the south. The princess asked if there was a route or a way to get there. There is no direct route from this continent to the crude empire. You can't get there directly from the Beastmen Kingdom. You have to make a detour through the Homan Empire, or go by sea. Then everyone turned to the master. Is it safe to go south? He asked to wait, but it was immediately clear that he did not know the geography of this world, although he had spent quite a long time in the Great Forest. The sword added that without him, he would still be wandering there. Then he was shut up. The princess realized that she had no choice, and decided to show a map of the continent. The continent was divided. In the north was the wolf forest, where the elves lived. In the south were the lands of the human race, and in the center were 3 countries inhabited by beastmen and dwarves. The princess pointed to the elven village in the northern forest on the map. Algeria is in the Templeton Kingdom, one of the central countries of the beastmen. The Reed Crud Empire is the largest city in the south, inhabited by humans. He asked how they could get there. Through Templeton Kingdom is the best option, without crossing the border to Luxgale Kingdom. He remembered that his friend said that she would be in Luxgale. The Templeton Kingdom is a country where beastmen and humans coexist, and it maintains diplomatic relations with neighboring nations, so it should be easier to cross. Although he may be wrong, since he knows almost nothing about humans. But he was told that there would be no problem, since they had already passed through this kingdom several times. It seemed that the route had been chosen, but at that moment the princess and the hero felt threatened. A servant ran into the room, shouting, "Trouble!" He reported that something similar to a meteorite had appeared in the sky. Everyone rushed to look. They noticed that the object was flying straight towards them. Everyone started discussing what to do. Kanan said that she would try to stop it with magic. The princess decided to help. They used flame and wind magic together. Together they created a huge fireball and aimed it straight at the flying object, hoping to destroy it. The ball hit the target and caused an explosion. Everyone was happy, thinking that it was destroyed, because it fell to the ground. Suddenly there was an explosion. The hero managed to put up a barrier. A huge mountain appeared before their eyes. He said that if the object had fallen without their intervention, the entire village would have been destroyed. The princess noted that there was nothing to be happy about. The forest had been damaged, and she would swear to destroy whoever did it. At that moment, a giant appeared before them. The princess recognized him, for it was Kraft, one of the ancient giants. For destroying the forest, the princess declared that there was no forgiveness for him. She turned to Kraft, the leader of the giant tribe, who was watching them with a smirk. The giant laughed, turning to the princess. How long had it been since they had seen each other? And even after so many years, she was still so small. He was an ancient giant. His level was 495. The title Ancient Giant, always looking for a challenge. The princess asked if he had come to lose again like last time. The hero thought that his level was higher than Anthea's, and his skills were geared towards physical strength, so if the battle started here, the village would suffer. The giant grinned and noted that she was afraid to fight alone again and, as always, was bringing an army with her. The princess demanded an explanation. Why did he come, destroy the forest, and endanger her people? Was his subordinate to blame for the story with the monsters? The giant irritably said that he did not understand what she was talking about. The princess again demanded an explanation. He noted that she had lost one of her lives and was weakened. That is why he came. He said that she had only one life left, and this was their last meeting. At that moment, the hero cut his hand and fingers too. The hammer fell from his hand. The giant asked who this impudent fellow was. The hero answered that he was a man, the one who took the life of Antea. The giant, turning to the princess, asked if he could have some fun with him. Sumeragi said that he hated those who tried to destroy the weak without having an explanation for it. The giant asked again if he was the one who took the last life from Antea. The giant did not believe him, and the hero asked him if he wanted to measure his strength, or if he was saying this because he was afraid and could not admit his cowardice. But if the giant admitted defeat and repented for destroying the forest, he would forgive him. At which the giant became very angry. The giant said he thought he wanted to die. He summoned the hammer in his other hand, calling out his name, Muller, and they began to fight furiously, moving away from the village. The maids noticed that this was their master's plan. They were ordered to send all the children and those who could not fight to the village, as monsters could come here, and those who could fight should stand up to protect the village. The sword said that they were far enough away and the fight could begin. The giant asked why the hero did not attack him, but only defended himself from his blows. To which the hero answered with a grin that his attacks never hit their target. The sword said with a grin that it seemed that this giant had traded his intelligence for strength. Now my master would show him what they were capable of. As soon as they struck, they were surprised, because it was only a scratch on the giant's leg, and he himself laughed, saying that it tickled. For the giant, these small blades were nothing, they couldn't even scratch him. The hero began to attack chaotically, and the giant barely had time to react. The giant said that even if he changed tactics, it wouldn't help, but the hero didn't stop. Sumeragi knew this, so he prepared to deliver the fatal blow. This made the giant very happy, because he thought that finally the hero had decided to fight him for real. The hero used the guillotine's Hellfire magic attack, and the giant used his powerful attack. The impact wave was so strong that the earth shook, the entire forest shook, and the elves were in shock and did not understand what was happening. The giant was delighted because he was the first to withstand his strong attack. He was not even hurt by the Hellfire guillotine. Moreover, his appearance changed, and the sword was shocked. The giant boasted that he was an ancient giant, the only one who controlled giants and demons, and asked his name. The hero replied that he was a man, Sumeragi Tsukuru. The giant asked what his power was, saying that it was unlikely to be Timas, since humanity had long since become helpless. Sword thought that it was the name of an ancient human race, but the hero said that he had no idea what they were talking about, and that he was an ordinary man. The giant laughed, smirking that the hero had no idea what he was talking about. However, it didn't matter anymore, because he was sure that he would kill the hero soon. He said that he would show him his true strength, and punched the air. The hero was shocked that he had created a shockwave with just his fist, causing the hero to fly a long distance. Half dead, the hero took meat from the storage to recover. The sword told him not to relax, but his master shut him up again. The giant was surprised that the hero could still stand, but said that his death was inevitable, to which the hero replied in a disagreeable tone that he had simply given him a small head start. The giant laughed, grinning at the boy's words. Well, he knows how to joke, but he won't leave here alive, and attacked. The giant shouted at the hero for what reason he only defended himself, not going on the attack. The giant attacked the same way as before, but his strength and speed increased several times, which made it more difficult for the hero. He asked where his self-confidence had gone. Sumeragi fought back with all his might, using up all his strength. The sword said he wouldn't lie, it would be a tough fight for the current him. It was hard for him to fight the giant, but the sword supported him. And although the giant's level and strength were higher than the hero's, Sumeragi was lucky. He had a divine sword of mythical class on his side. The sword asked him to believe in it, to repel attacks and follow its instructions, and it in turn would choose the right moment. In the meantime, it was worth confusing the enemy with camouflage and dark magic. The sword also told him to increase his speed, to move faster, telling him where to repel attacks from above, from the left, from the right, from below. It insisted that the hero not relax and move faster than he could think, so that the blood would flow throughout his body and bring him to the highest limit. The giant also noticed that Sumeragi's movements had changed, that he had sped up, and now the right moment had come. The sword ordered to use it and hit the enemy in the face. The giant objected that he should not even think that he could hurt him with this blunt sword. To this the hero shouted, "Do not dare to underestimate him. After all, he is the Black Dew." Sumeragi used his Hado magic. Crafton didn't understand what was happening. The hero cast the next magic move, the highest move, number 2. He slashed with his sword. It was the skill True Fang Meteor Slasher. The giant roared, shouting that he would not allow him to do this, and swung his fist. But the blow from the man's sword landed on the giant's right hand. Then he raised his other hand to strike again. The sword noticed this and said that things were bad and that he needed to defend himself immediately. The hero flew very far from the blow of such force, but the giant also fell to the ground. The sword noted that their hasty preparation was not enough, and ordered the owner to heal immediately. However, for some reason, he did not answer. The sword still couldn't wake up its owner. Sumeragi was barely thinking that he needed to quickly prepare the recovery food and eat it. But he couldn't even move and only listened to the giant's speech about how he was first pressed to such an extent that he lost his arm and even fell, and called it a good fight. He was about to crush Tsukura Sumeragi with his foot, but Kanan did not allow him to do this. She said that she would not let him kill the master. Sumeragi saw her, but he could not move or say anything. He did not understand what she was thinking, because she could not stop the giant. She would simply die with him. And so, when he reached the limit, the goddess appeared and asked if he wanted to become stronger. He was curious about who she was, but the goddess replied that he was in no position to ask questions. If he did not answer quickly, he would die here, along with his servant. She repeated the question of whether he wanted to become stronger. He was thinking, isn't it obvious, he thought. He can't die here. He hasn't done anything yet. There are those he must destroy, and he must become the strongest. The goddess replied that this was a good answer. Now she can release the divine protection. He still wanted to know who she was, but the goddess said he would find out soon. A notification appeared. The seal of divine protection has been removed. As soon as the first notification appeared, a second one immediately followed, that he had learned a unique skill, Feast of the Gods. A bright light illuminated his body. Kanan and the giant were amazed by this divine radiance, did not understand what was happening. The screen displayed notifications about new skills. He could now create dishes from ingredients above level 300. There was also a warning. One of the effects could only be used twice, after which he would lose 1 sense for 23 hours and 55 minutes. He chatted that he hadn't seen such descriptions for a long time, thanked for the imbalanced skill, although he still didn't know who to thank. He used Feast of the Gods on the Imperial Dragon meat, wanting to gain the strength to defeat Crafton. The taste did not please him, but the effect of the skill, Feast of the Gods, gave him a new skill, Divine Power. The hero went on the attack, but Crafton still wanted to know what he had done. He shouted that the ancient giant could not be defeated just because of a small increase. But the man became stronger, and it was difficult to catch him. He struck all over his body. Crafton didn't understand what had happened to his strength. The man had become so fast that he couldn't even see him. Was he really a simple man, he wondered? But he didn't want to admit it, because he didn't want to lose. And then Sumeragi delivered the final blow with hellfire magic, guillotine. Crafton was horrified by the pain and did not believe what was happening. But then he fell dead, and everywhere the giant's blood rained down. In front of him, covered in blood, stood Sumeragi. Kanan was also covered in blood, but still worried about the master, she called him. But his anger had not yet subsided, so she had to be wary. Before he could curse, the youngest ran up to him and hugged him, exclaiming how cool he was. He was surprised to see Sanya and the others. They said he had done a great job, and that they hadn't expected anything less from him. Kanan was beating herself up for not being able to do anything. Anthea said that if the hero died here, her death would have been in vain. She also reminded him that this was not the end, and that she hoped he had not forgotten. Before she could finish speaking, a huge shadow appeared. This shadow was from Crafton. He had already been reborn. Everyone was in confusion, and the hero again drew his sword. The sword said that he had to finish him off before the divine power had time to dissipate. But the giant, who had just woken up, shouted, "Mjolnir!" And his hammer moved straight into his hands. The hero was just about to strike when the giant said that he would not allow it now and used magic. He shouted, "Blowing," after which a magic circle appeared and lit up. Sumeragi thought that this light was very similar to the one when he was summoned to this world, and then there was nothing left around except deserted mountains. No one understood what was happening. Sanya began to panic. Where are they in the desert? Either they destroyed everything or died. Her sister could not calm her down. The princess said that they were alive, and that the power of the hammer teleported them somewhere, because she no longer felt either Crafton or the elves, as if they were in another world. Kanan became worried and asked the master if they were in Japan. Having finished cleaning the clothes, he answered that this was not so. He started to talk about how the world he lived in was much. Before he could finish speaking, he collapsed. Everyone ran to him worriedly. He himself did not understand what had happened to him. Sumeragi did not feel his body. In the kingdom of Luke Sundale, the capital of Sanset, a homeless man approached the heroine, asking to help his daughter. who was poisoned by a monster. He begged to heal her or give her an antidote. The heroine wanted to help, but the guards forbade it. The guards explained that this man was probably a beast man with low social responsibility. He might try to attack, steal property, and if he didn't do that, he would harass her, extorting food or money. They said that she might not know this because they were from another world, but here they were ready to do anything, pretend to be sick, mutilate themselves, just to beg for a coin. Perhaps this man himself had kidnapped the child and poisoned him. They asked not to pay attention to such people. Suzanon still wanted to help, because the girl was really in a serious condition. But the guards said that even if she was healed, she would still die because she would be used by others. He asked her to leave them and do her own thing. Nearby, a friend called out to her by name, but she cried, not knowing who to believe. In this world, human life was worth nothing. People here died easily and senselessly, not like in Japan. Here, people's lives were not cared for, so children from another world were pulled out and used as weapons without hesitation. People quickly got rid of those who were of no use. Even passers-by discussed how many slaves they bought and what they were like. Mickey said that it wasn't just this world that disgusted her, but also their classmates who were becoming like that. She said that they would have to fight as heroes in a world where slavery and discrimination were commonplace. Why did it turn out like this? If she had known, she wouldn't have let Tsukuru go alone. He might already be someone's slave or a beggar. In the worst case, her friend interrupted her, urging her not to say that. She said that they had to endure this, and they had to become stronger, defeat the demon lord, and return home. She believed that they would meet Tsukuru-kun again along the way. She thanked Mickey and said that she believed in her and Tsukuru-kun, and he was still unconscious. Everyone was worried. They wondered if he had lost consciousness because of the damage he had received or the blow to his head, even though Kanan had already used healing magic on him. But he felt that his brain, eyes, and ears were working, but his body didn't feel like he was under anesthesia. Sword guessed that this might be a penalty for using God's Feast. He called out the sword's name, Black Mist, as it moved. The sword asked Sumeragi through telepathy if he wasn't glad that at least he could communicate with him. Suddenly the sword flew into the sky and sparkled. He announced that he was the divine sword Black Mist, and that they could communicate telepathically with the master, and he would become a guide. He told stories about the hero non-stop, and Sanya listened with interest. He even told about how the hero once forgot that he was naked and received the strange title of Wonderful Person. Tsukuru asked him to shut up, saying that he wasn't there then, and to stop telling dubious stories. But the sword proudly claimed that it was doing him a favor by telling all the shameful stories that he wouldn't tell. The hero thought that he would definitely remember this when he could move. Auntie and Hannah returned. They looked around the area, but it was unfamiliar to them. This was not the Death Continent where giants and demons lived, because here they found many demons, but no other tribe. The sister was covered in demon blood, but told her worried sister that she was unharmed. Sumeragi remembered that Crafton had said that he controlled both giants and demons. The sword told the story that the master knew. The princess confirmed. Ever since the War of the Gods, even when the demons and giants were defeated and banished to the continent of death, the ancient type of demon had not appeared. Maybe the ancient demon is dead, they asked her. But they answered that it was impossible. When a demon of the ancient type dies, a new one is born. He concluded that in order to control the powers of other tribes, it is necessary either through cooperation or by sealing the demon so that it cannot interfere. The girls were shocked. They too could have ended up in a prison like this, inhabited only by demons. These were just Tsukuru's guesses, which could have been confirmed if he had been able to summon the undead. But due to the loss of his sense of touch, the skills did not work. It was decided to set up camp and wait for recovery. Kanan said he would pitch a tent, Anthea-san and Sanya-san asked them to help her set up the tents, and Hana-san to cook dinner. But first, she wanted to use the cleanse skill on them. She acted a little strange, which the princess noticed and asked her what she was thinking about. She was confused and couldn't answer clearly, but Hana said that it was normal to be anxious in such a situation because everyone was feeling the same way. Then she went to cook dinner, thinking that after a warm meal she would feel calmer. Everyone thanked her. Everyone went to bed except Kanan, who was taking care of the master, although the sword already said that he was not sick and did not need it. She apologized for not knowing that he was not sleeping, as she was very worried. She reproached herself. If she had the power to at least distract Crafton, this would not have happened to him, although he did not even expect this from her. Sword asked if she should tell her about his thoughts, but the hero refused. Even when the case was solved, no one can bring the dead back to life, and it takes a long time for such a wound to heal. And now, finally, he can move again, everything is fine now. Having regained his sense of touch and his skills, he immediately summoned the dead spirit Baze. The girls went on reconnaissance with Baze. The hero was surprised why this time the skill required more magical power than usual. On the other hand, he had raised his level thanks to the battle with Anthea and Crafton. Now, there should be no abnormalities in his status, and he had no useless skills since he had fed them in equal exchange. The large expenditure of magic power was most likely related to this place, and he still wondered who that woman was. A demon crept up on the hero from behind, but the princess killed it right away. She said that demons were aggressive creatures. They attacked all night, and even when they were caught, they claimed that they were scouts. Despite this, she killed them. The hero thought that she was extremely cruel to her enemies. But the more demon corpses there are, the more familiars Bize can summon, it will be a nightmare for the demons. The undead returned and said that he saw the edge of this world while he was destroying demons along the way. The girl said that he was very strong and did not let them do anything. Sumeragi asked what the edge of this world meant. Bize confirmed that it was exactly as Anthea had suggested, and that it wasn't their world. The hero thought that it wasn't his either. If he defeated the enemy above level 300 and used them as ingredients for the Feast of the Gods, they would be able to return. B said that he had found the location of the ancient demon. At that time, the demon did not understand why the other demons did not return, that even their corpses could not be found. It had been hundreds of years since Crafton had sealed him in this world with his strange hammer. He had already lived in suffering, and now there was even more. The ancient demon had ordered Gaizen to eliminate the offenders immediately. A team of 5 people and 1 ghost in the form of a ghost came to the fortress. It was the castle of an ancient demon. They quickly approached him. They were met by the vampire Gazelle. A window with his characteristics floated next to this evil. The vampire introduced himself as follows, saying that he was a great demon, and all who disturbed this land would be destroyed. Before he could finish his speech, a fist flew at him. Hannah, the maid, hit him in the face. At that moment, the vampire's minions were outraged at how she dared to do such a thing to their lord. They started to attack her. But Sonya came to Hannah's aid with her axe technique. She said there were too many demons. Bize, the spirit, noticed that they had obviously come because they had noticed an anomaly. The spirit added that they had most likely reached the ancient demon. The heroes cleared their way. Sumeragi turned to the elf, who was thinking about something. She replied that she was thinking about the axe Mjolnir, which Crafton had in his hands. She was sure that he had not created it himself. The swordsman asked her if it was possible that someone had given it to him. The warrior received a positive answer. The elf explained that her people could not create such weapons. Hannah also confirmed this theory, explaining that beastmen and gnomes do not have such great magical powers. Bize suggested that perhaps the cunning spirits of death, distinguished by their cunning and enormous magical power, had a hand in the creation of the axe, but they do not get along with other races and are especially hostile to giants. In theory, it could also be that the weapon was stolen by Grimilla from demons, but humans can also create such weapons. Sumeragi thought maybe the demons would give an answer to this question. The elf immediately warned the swordsman that he shouldn't count on much. They are on par with giants and not very intellectual. But the guy replied that otherwise he would just let the demon get the ingredients. The swordsman guessed that if he used the Feast of the Gods, they would all be able to get out of here, but he needed an ingredient above level 300. And the local demon was just that. At this time, someone was lamenting that thousands of his soldiers had disappeared in an instant. He was roaring angrily. He felt someone's presence, and his Antea. Kana and Bize successfully attacked the opponents with magic. This greatly surprised the demon. The swordsman kicked the door open, and the team rushed into the hall, causing fear among the demon's supporters. They tried to stop the warrior. The elf sarcastically noted that the subordinates did not obey their master. Catoblepas, the ancient demon, sat on his throne. An information window with characteristics popped up next to him. The demon only giggled. Catoblepas began to speak about how they too were apparently struck down by Crafton's strange hammer, that this world was self-sufficient and there was no way out of it. He considered them fools, since they had come to quarrel. The swordsman noticed that the demon himself did not know anything about weapons. The elf responded to the demon's words earlier, saying that they were the ones who attacked the team first and it was yet to be determined who was more stupid. These words provoked the demon. He growled that elves could not fight without borrowing the strength of others. Where did such leniency come from? The demon stood up from his place, threatening not to underestimate him. Sonya rushed at him, saying that she would chop him down first. At that moment, Catoblepas activated the cursed eye, 3, on his stomach. Sonya fell under its influence. The girl seemed to have fallen dead. She lay with her eyes open. Hannah screamed her sister's name, rushing to pull her away. Someone shouted that you can't look a demon in the eye. Catoblepas continued to giggle. The demon replied that it was pointless not to look. At the same time, eyeballs began to pour out of his body, surrounding the team. The demon activated not only the cursed eyes, but also the poisonous eyes, assuring that the invaders would not be able to look away. Catoblepas watched what was happening with pleasure. The elf commanded everyone to close their eyes. Hannah hugged her sister, who was under the curse. The demon continued to assure that everything was useless. All those who fell under the influence of the eyes became his puppets. Sonya swung an axe at her sister. The swordsman intercepted Sonya, and with one jerk found himself above the demon, causing him to bewilder. The warrior cut the throne with his katana. The demon was surprised that it was an ordinary person. The swordsman explained that he could detect the location of the demon even with his eyes closed. The swordsman had a trump card in the form of a presence detection technique. The frightened and wounded Catoblepas screamed that this was not the end, and that he had a second life. To this the swordsman said that he did not have a second life, and pierced him with a blade. Among all the ancient demons the swordsman had fought, this one was the weakest. While Hannah was rejoicing at Sonya's return to normal, the swordsman was cutting up the demon's carcass. She told the elf that he had looked around but hadn't found the information he needed. But they had the meat of Catoblepas, and they needed to gather their strength to return. To this the elf only looked at the piece of flesh with disgust, and asked if the swordsman was really going to eat it. But in fact, Sumeragi was not thrilled with the idea either. Their conversation was interrupted. Kana made a request to the swordsman. She asked to be allowed to taste the food of the gods. When Kana asked to be allowed to partake of the food of the gods, everyone turned to look at her. Kana thought back to the past. In the tent, while Sumeragi was sleeping, she sat next to him, thinking about Lord Dolce and how useless she was, because she was still being protected. At some point, Hannah came with an invitation to go for a walk. Kana expected to be scolded, but instead, she was handed a bottle of sweets. Hannah asked to keep this gesture a secret from Sonya. Kana remembered the mistress, who also asked to hide this moment from Lord Dolce. Hannah explained that these were the kaffites that Alterius had asked for from the maid of the Abuse family. He also added that this was a way to cheer Kana up. After understanding the gist, Kana apologized for making her worry about herself. She had been a mage apprentice for long enough. She thought she would become stronger, but so far nothing had happened. She also praised Hannah, who she thought was always reserved, looked good, and could do anything. But Hannah objected that, unlike her, Kana was not a sinner. Kana tried to encourage the wolf, as she had to do it because her sister's safety was threatened. Hannah responded that everyone had forgiven her, and she wants to repay them by devoting herself entirely to serving her master. The wolf added that her abilities could not compare to those of her master, but she could save him time. Hannah noted that the same was true for Kana. The wolf survived only because the sorceress stood up for her. She asked Kana not to forget that there are people who were saved only because of who Kana herself is. Hannah quickly apologized for saying too much. But Kana thanked the maid. The girl felt better after the wolf's words. Kana added that Hannah was right, and she would continue to do everything she could. Present. The people present were still looking at Kanu. Sumeragi asked the sorceress what she had just said. The girl repeated her request for the food of the gods. The elf muttered a little worriedly about how she needed to take care of herself. The swordsman responded to the request that even if she was a glutton, there should be a limit. This made the sorceress indignant. This was a misunderstanding. Kana explained her request. The swordsman uses the power gained from eating the food of the gods to return to his world. And space-time magic itself is the dream of any mage, and Kana wanted to practice using it. The warrior reminded her of the 5-minute limit and the risk of losing one of her senses. The girl replied that she knew about it. But even if it was 5 minutes, she would have time to feel and analyze, which would ultimately allow her to master this type of magic. Kana also added that after the swordsman completes his revenge, she will be able to send him away, or even go with him to his world. The girl sounded convincing, and the swordsman thought about it. Sumeragi had no attachment to his world, as he had nothing there. He finally agreed to fulfill Kana's request, and called her to eat the food of the gods. The demon meat in his hand began to glow, which surprised the she-wolves. As Kana was putting a piece of meat in her mouth, the swordsman told her to make a wish while she was eating. After tasting the food of the gods, she barely restrained herself from spitting it out at Sumeragi's insistence. He noted that the taste was terrible, and that there was something wrong with the gods' preferences. The swordsman only told her to hurry up and make a wish. She asked to be given power, space-time magic that would return them to the world they came from. A circle formed around the team. Clouds in the shape of foxes enveloped them. The she-wolves admired what was happening. One of the foxes wrapped her body around Kana, and Kana spoke the words about returning to their world. In the empty, white space, a voice addressed Temas. He asked about the awakening of the hero. To this, Temasu replied that there were no signals. The voice continued that this time, too, they had failed, and a new batch of heroes would be summoned. Temasu bowed. Then he stood up. He thought about awakening. Temasu thought that the heroes from another world would be able to awaken, but they were all below level 100. He planned to gather all the useless heroes and sacrifice them to summon a new party. Temasu turned out to be an old man with a staff. Kanana called her friends to return to their world. She was able to activate her magic, but the swordsman found himself in a completely different place. There was an oriental atmosphere all around. It was somewhat reminiscent of the territory of a traditional temple in Japan. But the swordsman knew that this was neither the wolf forest nor Japan. A greeting was heard from behind, causing the swordsman to turn around abruptly. He discovered that his katana was missing, but he was assured that there was no reason to fear. The man who presented himself said that he was not an enemy. To this, Sumeragi asked who it was. The girl introduced herself as Hirumeno Mikota, a deity of Japan and one of the pillars. Sukuru was indignant that he didn't care who she was. He only cared about what kind of place this was and where his comrades were. The deity explained that this was her garden, and that she had done nothing to Kana and the others. She had only summoned him at the last moment before returning. She had several requests for the swordsman. She continued to say that she is a deity and knows absolutely everything about all living beings inhabiting Japan. She knew about what happened when Sukuru was summoned into this world, with 107 classmates into this world. The swordsman was again outraged that she knew everything that had happened to them and did not intervene. They suddenly found themselves in the tea pavilion. She made it clear that it was not that she had not done anything. She simply could not intervene. She continued to say that if she canceled the summoning, all the energy would lose its purpose and go out of control. This could cause a dimension explosion and destroy all of Japan. Sukuru, who was sitting at the table, listened to her silently. Not only Japan, but also the Earth's core could be damaged. This would be the end of all life on Earth. The swordsman complained that she was telling this story just so that he would believe her. She confirmed. That's why she allowed him to enter this world, and even managed to bless the swordsman. The swordsman thought about the message that said the blessing was removed. But that wasn't all. She noted that he had unimaginable abilities for a, quote, chief. Originally, all the techniques he had shouldn't have been so powerful. She was glad that her blessing had bugged Sukuru's skills, making them cheat-like. Sumeragi was amazed at how the deity's personality suddenly changed. But he was still dissatisfied with the fact that he had to go through all the difficulties on his way. But the deity explained that otherwise his body and mind would not have withstood it and he would have exploded. Because of this, Hirumeno had to adjust the blessing to the swordsman's level. After replying that the swordsman understood the reason for his abilities, he asked what else was required of him. The deity replied that he wanted no one from this world to be able to summon people from the world where Tsukuru lived. She started complaining that people from this world had made a huge hole in the space-time fabric and were dragging people away by the hundreds. A big hole could destroy the world, and it was a headache for the runs. Therefore, the deity voiced his request to destroy all objects and scriptures at the call from other dimensions. The swordsman remembered how he ended up here and realized that the power was given to destroy them. He agreed to the request, which made the deity happy. But the swordsman asked how he would be rewarded for this. This made Hiruma surprised. But the swordsman repeated the question about the reward. The deity asked if blessings were not suitable as a reward, since she had worked so hard to raise his level. Tsukuru thanked her for this, but noted that her request was a different matter. To this, the deity called him mean. Sumeragi sipped the tea and noticed that it was delicious, while the god's food was disgusting. At this time, the deity said that she could not help and should not, but only this time she would make an exception. In the hands of the deity was a sphere on which was depicted Ayumi. The deity promised to tell something interesting about her. The swordsman jumped up from his seat, asking what his sister had to do with it. The deity avoided answering, saying that he would tell about everyone who was summoned. The swordsman did not retreat. Hiruma continued speaking, but about Kana. She said that Kana would learn space-time magic very soon, and Tsukuru would be able to return home. He must not let any of his classmates return here. He wanted to know why, but the deity simply answered that he should just think about it. She explained that 108 people were caught in this incident. She must not only close the hole, but also go back in time to erase the traces of their presence in this world. That's why, when Kana masters space and time magic, he must not allow anyone to return. The records of their existence have been erased. They have no place to return to. The swordsman asked again that they would have to live in this world because there was no point in returning. The deity answered in the affirmative. Tsukuru didn't think about it, remembering Kanu, who promised to bring him back, and Ayumi, who hoped to meet again. He asked the deity what if someone appeared who wanted to return, despite the fact that everything about him was erased. The deity replied that she could not restore what had already been erased, but could create new records as badges. She asked to call her when the time came. The swordsman cursed the deity for using him, but Hiruma laughed at this, and noted that she could not interfere in the affairs of this world, and he was nothing without his blessings, so they should help each other. She cupped his face in her hands and said she was counting on him. Tsukuru slowly opened his eyes. Sanya was happy that they were back in the wolf forest, and hugged her sister tightly. Not far away, the team noticed a group of people walking towards them. The people apologized for not being able to stop Crafton, but Anthea assured them that everything was fine as long as they were safe. Sumeragi was thinking about the deity. She threw it away as soon as the conversation ended. He remembered the sphere that his sister was in. He wanted to know what she wanted to tell him about Ayumi. While the swordsman stood there thinking, Kana approached him to make sure he was okay. He waved it off, saying that he was thinking about trifles. He told Kana to go and rest before the side effects of the god's food began to take effect. Kana agreed. Their conversation was interrupted by calling the sorceress. The swordsman thought about his sister again. He didn't care about the fate of his classmates, but it was different for one person, Suzune. A side effect of the food of the gods was that Kana lost her hearing. But overall, she was fine. The comrades decided to rest until her hearing was restored. Meanwhile, Anthea talked to the locals, who allowed Crafton to leave. About a month had passed since the disappearance. The elf praised the villagers for guarding the forest well. Someone slipped. The fallen man had broken the arched gate that had just been repaired. Everyone's eyes turned to the source of the noise. The noise was coming from two ancient beings, Duke, an ancient dwarf, and an ancient animagus, Kobaru. A window of characteristics appeared next to the beings. Kobaru began to tell how scared she was when Oroanthea disappeared. The forest and the village were almost destroyed. After listening, the elf thanked them for protecting her. It was hard for all the tribes then. They almost quarreled with each other. But upon the return of the elf, the ancient creatures must return to their homeland because the problems of the people will soon affect their homeland. This surprised the swordsman. He turned to the gnome at the animagus and asked what had happened. Duke whispered in his ear, It all happened after Crafton had left. Crafton, screaming that everything was driving him crazy, smashed everything around him. He was angry at Tsukuru for being so strong that he took his second life. He suspected Temas of making an alliance with Atiya and sending Sumeragi. He thought Temas had tricked them. Crafton cursed. He called Kompanen. She came. He ordered to declare war on Temas, even if it meant using demons. Suzuna leaned her elbows on the table. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't get the image of the beast man tearfully begging her to save the child in his arms out of her mind. She remembered the funeral and her brother. The girl covered her face with her hands. Even if she was considered a hero or a saint, she could do nothing but heal. She thought about how she didn't have the strength to take up arms and the courage to go against the will of the locals and run away. She was always protected while she cried. The girl missed her parents. There was a knock at the door. A voice behind the door called her. It was Miki. She came to invite her friend to dinner. The brunette refused, citing lack of appetite. But Miki insisted, saying that she needed to eat, otherwise she could get sick. The girls were walking down the stairs, discussing what they would have for dinner. Miki was wondering what kind of meat they could use for the steak. There was a strange atmosphere downstairs. Someone pointed at the man. In the center stood a boy, and next to him was a bunny girl. The young man who pointed at him commented that Kariyama Kaido had bought a child slave again. Kariyama himself was pleased with the fact that he could buy slaves simply by selling materials from the dungeons. Kaito was asked what happened to the child he had bought before. The guy just waved it off, saying that Miki could come up with something herself. Miki identified him as the worst, but Kariyama just suggested that the bunny go to his room and he would wash her. The bunny was grabbed by the hand. Suzuno grabbed the child, trying to protect him. She asked suspiciously what he was going to do with this child and where he had put the previous ones. He only cursed and snatched the slave from the girl's hands. He pressed the girl with the words that he doesn't care what they say. The one who bought the slave has complete power over him. He said that after they were suddenly thrown into this world, it was only fair that he would enjoy it. Unlike Suzuna, he was adapting to this world and not whining and crying. He reproached the girl for her words that she said to him. He said that it was time to look reality in the eye. Mika and the guy standing next to them pounced on him. They started arguing. They accused Kaito of being the worst. The knight who came in asked what the noise was about. The bell rang, which surprised those present in the hall. Knights and officials burst in, declaring that giants and demons had invaded their territory and that the heroes needed to go and fight them. A hasty preparation began. War was brewing between the humans and the alliance of the two tribes. The Shie were loading into the wagons. Suzuna thought about the invasion. She wondered if war always began so suddenly. They had been told that they had been summoned to defeat the Demon Lord, and now they were being sent to the battlefield. She was afraid. She thought about what she should do, watching Temas talking to the guy with glasses. Miki promised to protect her. The girl was frightened by her friend's words. It seemed to her that she was talking as if she was going to die. But Miki refuted her fears. She noted that only Suzuna and a couple of other people could heal people, and if she died, the others would die too. Her friend encouraged her by saying that he and other classmates were training with the knights. They asked her to heal them if they were injured. They trusted her. This touched the girl. She decided that she would not just watch, because only she could heal wounds. She asked her friends to count on her. She won't cry anymore. They will survive everything together. In the hall, an official was giving Temas news from the front. Temas was sitting on the throne. About a month had passed when giants and demons invaded with war. Heroes and knights did everything in their power, but the enemy was superior in numbers. It was necessary to urgently ask for help from the four tribes, or else it would be the end for him. There was a terrible picture all around. Smoke, wounded bodies of knights. Suzuki was horrified by all this. Wounded people were brought from everywhere, and Suzune healed them with her power. The heroes were already beginning to rebel, and they were already thinking that it would be better to surrender. But Hideo Kudze had a different opinion. He thought it was a bad idea, because there was no guarantee that they would be spared. They would die either while escaping or while being caught. He pulled a bag out of his pocket. It contained pills. According to Kudze, the high priest gave them to him. They were some kind of boosters to increase strength. Everyone started to get upset that he had hidden them until now. Hideo explained that they couldn't be used thoughtlessly. They last for 10 hours, but after that a person loses the ability to move. Everyone wanted to take a pill. Miki also asked, but Fujisaki stopped her, saying that she was an archer and it was better to leave the front lines to them. At that moment, Kudze turned to him. He asked the warrior to use his berserk skill. Those who received the pills decided to use them to destroy their enemies and swallowed them. They immediately felt that their strength had increased. A group of 10 people rushed into battle. Mika said she would cover, but Kudze was against it. He said that the rest were retreating. Mika was amazed. He said he wasn't going to fight for those who kidnapped them. It would have been a different story if they were in Japan and needed to protect their families. The seed of doubt was sown all around. Everyone thought that really, why should they fight? They had no reason. They thought that they could hide in some village. Mika asked about why he gave them those strength-enhancing pills then. Kudze said indifferently that he said that these pills turn people into possessed warriors who will fight until they have no strength left. Fujisaki noticed something strange. He did not take his pill, leaving it for the last resort. His comrades turned into possessed, and somewhere nearby he saw girls surrounded by demons. He cut one and asked the girls where the rest of the guys were. Mika immediately explained that they were used as bait. They decided to warn. Fujisaki warned that they needed to escape from here, but Suzune asked him to go with them. They were attacked by a classmate. The swordsman was surprised that it was Saruyama. The swordsman asked the girls to run for the last time. They ran through the forest, shooting back at the demons. They followed the tracks and would definitely catch up with the retreating ones. Miki cursed at Kudze and threatened to hit him as soon as she met him. At that moment, Suzune tripped. Suzune asked Miki to leave her and catch up with the others. The brunette immediately rejected this request, saying that she would rather die than leave her friend. Besides, she would not be able to look her friend in the eye if she did so. It infuriated her, but she understood that Kudze was right. She talked about it and collected arrows. Miki asked who they were fighting for. Personally, she was fighting to protect Suzune, and Miki wanted her to stay with her and protect her. They got off at that. As they emerged from the forest, Mika said that the open landscape meant they could be easily spotted. Suddenly, a giant appeared before them. She was huge, as Mika noticed. To this, the giantess replied that she was even smaller than others like her. Suzune was surprised that she could speak. This meant that they could give up. But at that moment, Miki noticed something behind the enormous carcass. They were the ones who retreated. Mika immediately realized the fact that they would not leave them alive. The giantess smirked that they wanted to point their sword at her. She urged Mika to strike her down, and then she would let them go. Mika accepted the challenge. Mika drew her sword and rushed towards her opponent with a cry. She deftly dodged. The giantess attacked the girl, but there was not a scratch on her. At the same time, Suzune was casting a spell. She knew she couldn't attack, but she could protect her friend in another way. She would continue casting and keep the magic active. And the moment Miki gets injured, she will be able to quickly heal her. The giantess noticed that Miki was being healed and decided to attack Suzune. At that very moment, Miki rushed towards her rival and pierced her eye, screaming that she would not allow her best friend to be touched. But the giantess caught the girl and threw her. Suzune rushed to her friend but was caught. She was pinned in the palm of her hand and threatened not to move. Mika was seriously injured. The brunette begged the giantess to stop, but the giantess only swung her blade, despite the plea. That was the end. The giantess was swinging her weapon with all her might. The story took place half a day before Ichino, Suzune, and the others entered the battle with the giants. Tsukuru listened to what the dwarf was telling him. He said that in the last month, Crafton had been using giants and demons to wage war on humans while hiding. Kobaru explained that all the beastmen had evacuated the land of humans due to the war. The swordsman asked about the heroes who had been summoned. The animecaps didn't know much about them, but she had heard that they were going to join the war against the giants. Tsukuru was confused. He turned around abruptly and headed somewhere. Antia asked where he was going. The swordsman replied that he was going to Luke Sandal. Opening the door, he said that he would return when Kana recovered. But he froze. He felt a strange sensation in space. Tamus and his retinue appeared before him. This shocked the swordsman. He was about to draw his sword. But then Anthea intervened, asking what Themis was doing on her territory. Tsukuru remembered that this man was the oldest representative of the human race. At that moment, the old man turned to the elf. At first, he froze in confusion, but he acted out a scene of relief for Antea. He told that the giants invaded the lands of people right after the attack on the elves. He came to ask for help. Such an attitude of the old man amazed Sumeragi. Kobaru agreed that all races should work together, but Anthea smirked, questioning whether she would believe that. She accused Temas of handing Melanir over to Crafton and faking their teleportation to another world. The elf noticed that the old man only angered Crafton more and hoped that Duke and Kobaru would join him. But since Anthea was healthy, they were out of luck. She demanded an apology for trying to harm her, and if there was none, she would respond in kind. Temas began to justify himself, saying that he had given the axe to the giants long ago so that they could fight the demons, and he had not thought that things would turn out like this. He apologized for the giants' barbarity. Anthea accepted the apology, but warned them to be careful. The swordsman was amazed at how easily she accepted the apology. Bizet responded to his thoughts by saying that this was how politics worked. No one would win by fighting each other. It was better to work together against a common enemy. But something still bothered the ghost. The ghost noted that Temas was counting on human superiority and was trying to destroy Anthea. One wrong move in his plan and humanity would perish. But he took such a risk. Bizet suggested that it might be related to the summoning of heroes. The swordsman asked not to ask him. He drew his blade and headed towards the old man and his entourage. The retinue tried to stop him. One of the knights drew his sword and pointed it at Sumeragi, but lost his arm. The others stepped forward, hiding Temas behind their backs. The swordsman turned to the old man and said that he couldn't let him go now. Temas wondered what a human child was doing in such a place. He asked the swordsman if they had met. To this, Tsukuru asked if the oldest representative of humans was suffering from dementia. The swordsman did not forget a single day from the moment he was thrown into this place by this man. Sumerag dealt with his retinue and was already standing close to Temas, asking if he understood him. The old man used earth magic to defend himself. The comrades watched the fight. Temas wondered if it could be him. The swordsman asked if the old man was going to fight. He noticed that Crafton surpassed the old man in strength and speed. The boy attacked. The striker fought back. He wanted to ask, but the swordsman interrupted him, saying that it was he who had beaten Crafton. Tsukuru used the dark shackle skill, pinning the old man to the ground. But the swordsman assured that this was not the end. He had trained hard to take revenge. He pierced the old man's hand with a katana. The old man immediately tried to pay off, but the swordsman didn't need anything from him. The swordsman pierced Temas's leg and continued to say that he was quite strong and had many skills that he had not used on him yet. He showed his stat card. Sumeragi wasn't going to just forgive him for kidnapping people, but because of this old man, he had to go through hardships and pain. He wanted Temas to go through the same. He assured that when he was on the verge of life and death, he would give the old man a healing dish. Suddenly, someone's hand stopped the swordsman. Kana held him. He turned to her. She showed him a note asking him to let the old man go. Tsukuru only said that the Kana could speak, but she had only lost her hearing. At that moment, Anthea intervened. She wanted to find out what the humans were up to. Temas was lying to them about the demon lord appearing and summoning humans from another world, the old man asked indignantly. The old man said that they are just a nuisance. The strongest tribe capable of killing everything, the ghost tribe. Their existence is a nuisance in the world. Humans are trying to control. It is a matter of time until humans can obtain the power of light that can defeat the ghost tribe. He continued to say that the people of this world are not strong enough. Even the summoned ones do not have light magic. He mentioned that he will grant that person's wish to rule the world. He laughed furiously, causing confusion among everyone. Then he crumbled into dust. Sumeragi thought that he was dead, but his guesses were proven wrong. Temas used earth magic to escape. Now he is moving away from them at a high speed. The swordsman called Bizet and he went after the old man who escaped. Tsukuru was not sure that Bizet would catch him. The swordsman cursed. He regretted letting him go. He wondered who Temas was talking about. Was there someone behind him? He opened Kana's card. He remembered what the old man had said about light magic. Kana's characteristics included the attribute of light magic. He turned away, causing Kana to become flustered. She apologized for interfering, but the swordsman reassured her that it was not her fault. He was the one who had let the old man escape. He apologized for pushing the girl away. He turned to his comrades that he had missed the opportunity to leave because of Temas. He asked them to come with him. There were those he wanted to save. Baze returned and apologized for missing Temas. According to the ghost, he moved too fast. Tsukuru reassured him, explaining that the old man was an ancient representative. Elphika suggested that he might have hidden in his hideout. Kabaru said that she didn't really understand what the old man was trying to do. Luke noted that they knew what the humans were planning and needed to notify their brethren so that they could evacuate. The elves promised to protect the settlement. The animagas asked Anthea to focus on the goal and assured that they would welcome elves from human territory. Anthea responded with gratitude. Hannah wanted to warn the swordsman about the route, but Sumeragi replied that he was not going to delay. He decided to summon a flying carpet with an equal exchange. Hannah was surprised by the magical item. The swordsman explained that in his world there is a fairy tale about it. The team flew on the magic carpet at high speed. Sanya and Kana almost fell off. Then the sorceress used wind magic to weaken the wind flow. An open landscape opened up before them. It was a battlefield. They witnessed a battle between several people who no longer looked like people. The swordsmen opened their cards. Their stats were strange, as if under the fusion of something. It was also strange that not all the heroes were involved. Tsukuru used the presence detection skill. The skill detected movement. In the distance, the giantess swung her sword. The giantess, saying that this was the end, struck the ground with her blade. A cloud of dust rose around her. She was breathing heavily, holding Suzune in her large palm. The girl was crying. The giantess sniffed and noticed something. Someone was standing in front of her. The giantess asked who was in front of her. It was Tsukuru, who had blocked her blow aimed at Miki. Suzune recognized him. The swordsman called the giantess an old hag, demanding that she let the brunette go and go home with her other relatives. Hannah landed next to him. The wolf asked Miki to eat the food on the saucer. A piece of food was placed in the girl's mouth. The giantess watched silently as her brothers approached. They reproached her for delaying. They said that before her was a small man, and it did not take much thought to destroy him. The giantess approached the swordsman and asked if their army should simply retreat. The other two giants were outraged that she was negotiating with a human. To this, she told them to shut their mouths. She asked her comrades if they could determine his strength. She added that the swordsman had killed Crafton and could kill them instantly if he wanted. Sakura smirked that she had a keen eye. He simply told her that he could not allow his sons to die. At that moment, the swordsman realized that she was a mother. She let the girl go. Suzune looked back at the giantess and rushed towards Miki, but tripped and fell into Sumeragi's arms. She looked up at her friend, who was already completely healed. The girl excitedly clarified that Miki and Tsukuru were alive. To this, the swordsman replied that he had promised to meet again. The girl hugged him with tears. She cried about how scared she was and how she missed him. This shocked his comrades. She apologized for not being able to help him, for just watching everything from the sidelines. She didn't think this world was such a scary place. Tsukuru reassured his friend that it was not her fault and that she was the one who always worried about him. They reminisced about the past. She wanted to say something else, but she lost consciousness. Someone asked excitedly if she needed regeneration. The swordsman calmed them down. Velikansha decided to ask if they knew where Temas was. She couldn't return empty-handed. Sumeragi replied that he wanted to know that too. Suddenly, a strange feeling came over them. Anthea explained that it was a blow for Catoblepus's death. This feeling affected everyone, including Crafton and Temas. A new type of ancient demon appeared. He was in the cave, taking in the memories of Catoblepus. He saw that the demons were pathetic even after his disappearance. But that time has come to an end. Now that he has gained new power, everyone will know the true power of the demons. He screamed that vengeance would befall Crafton and Temas. The demons would listen to him. The demons sitting on the giants' backs jumped down and pointed their weapons at the giants. They wondered what had happened and why they were now against them. A sharp attack on one of the giants. Blood gushed out. The ancient demon continued his monologue that he would burn to ashes everyone who despised them. At this time, Tsukuru and the others watched what was happening and did not understand what had happened. As the demons attacked one of the giants and began to torment him, Anthea explained that after the death of Catoblepus, a new demonic race appeared, similar to the ancient demons. The demons broke free from the giants' control and began to attack them. This changed the situation on the battlefield. At this time, the deserting heroes watched as the giants and demons began to fight each other, after which the giants retreated. The people led by Kudze thought that the war would end and they would no longer have to fight. But Kudze himself had a hard time believing it. They fought desperately, lost comrades, and it all ended so suddenly. The people were happy about this outcome. It meant they were free. They were tired of following orders. Hideo confirmed that they could be free, but he himself was not entirely sure. Kariyama laughed at the giants, who were now fighting demons and risking their lives. Kaito thought that upon his return, he would be greeted as a hero. He dreamed of returning and finally having fun with the Beastman Bunny. He regretted that the sudden war had upset his plans. Kariyama thought he could make up for lost time, but the giant's enormous foot towered over him. He looked at it in horror. Meanwhile, in Luke's sandal, a little slave girl was brought food. She jumped for joy. The man who brought it complained that she didn't understand the state of the country and that the slaves outside were dying of starvation. On the other hand, how could she know? The man wondered how much longer he would have to do this. Before leaving, Kaito insisted that the child be fed 3 times a day and pampered with treats. The overseer was already dreaming of the moment when the owner of this child would return, although he was not sure that he would really return. The bunny happily chewed the bread. Suzuna had a nightmare about Miki being hurt. At that time, Miki herself was sitting next to her friend, who was crying in her sleep. Suzune finally came to her senses. She was glad to see her friend alive and well. The girl hugged Miki. The brunette told her friend how Hana had cured her. Suzune asked who Hana was. Hana assumed that they were talking about her, but she simply gave the brown-haired girl the food of the gods. Kana appeared from behind the wolf and said that she had treated Suzune's wounds and cast a purification. The girl noticed that there were indeed no wounds. The brunette thanked him and clarified that they were with Tsukuru. The sorceress introduced herself. Suzuna asked if they were friends with the swordsman. The wolf and the sorceress replied that they were his slaves. This angered Suzuna, who clung to Sumanaragi. She compared him to Kuriyama. But the swordsman explained that while the girl was sleeping, he had explained himself to Hayane Miki. Hana and Kana explained that Tsukuru had appeared during difficult times in their lives and had helped them a lot. Suzune understood the situation. The girls asked about the situation at the front. To this she replied that after the demon uprising, the giants had scattered and now they were all in the wolf forest. They immediately asked if it was dangerous there, but the elf assured that she had placed artifacts that scared away the monsters. Therefore, it was safe there. Antaya was touched by Suzune, and the brunette was amazed by the elf's beauty. They met. Antaya briefly told how she had met Sumeragi. He had killed her. This shocked Suzune. The swordsman asked not to complicate things for Antaya. The sorceress asked what kind of relationship Suzune had with her master. Miki intervened, saying that Tsukuru was Suzune's boyfriend, which made everyone confused, and Kana was shocked. The embarrassed brunette asked not to listen to her friend, and said that she and Sumeragi were childhood friends. But Miki continued to joke that the brunette was always talking about him. Kana understood that they were childhood friends, but reproached her master for being happy. The swordsman denied this. Someone returned to the group. It was Sanya with a caught boar. She wanted to feed it to her master's friend. When Suzune saw her, she thought it was Ayumi. The brunette began to ask her how she ended up here. Suzune almost let it slip that Ayume had died, but she continued to talk about seeing the body at the funeral. Meknich repeated his sister's name. As she remembered, he had also called Sanya when he first saw her. The swordsman decided to tell about how Sanbya resembled his sister, Ayumi. He told the story of how after his parents died, he was taken in by his father's best friend. Ayumi was the daughter of his father's best friend, so they weren't related. Suzune said he got along well with them. Tsukuru agreed. But they ended up dying in a car accident. Kana understood why the swordsman was surprised when he saw Sanya for the first time. He thought he was seeing Ayumi, but Sonya didn't recognize him. Moreover, she had been under Hana's care since birth. Hana reported that everything about Sanya, including the smell, confirmed that she was from her tribe. Suzune suggested that the little girl looked very similar to Ayumi. Sonya herself claimed that she had only recently met Sumeragi. She was born to a half-wolf and has been with Hana ever since. Then she served Count Fazel, where she was abused. She tried to protect a maid who broke an antique vase and was thrown into prison for it. But Hana saved her, and that's when she met her master. But Tsukuru didn't understand. Hiruma's words about his sister haunted him. If a deity spoke of her, there had to be a connection. He had no more leads. But to get an answer, he needs to complete Hiruma's task. And he needs to do everything as quickly as possible. Bizet suddenly appeared and gave Miki and Suzune a great fright. The swordsman asked if he had found the old man. The ghost replied that he had. He also brought a guest. It was Alterius. She greeted everyone. Everyone was suddenly surprised by Alterius's appearance. She decided to start a dialogue right away. Suzune summarized that Alterius was the first person the swordsman met when he passed through the gate. She was the former owner of Kana and the others. The cat girl said that she was glad to see everyone and that she did not expect to come from a settlement in a wolf forest. She noted that they could ask her to share the land. The swordsman replied that he had made this mansion his base. Suzune was surprised. The swordsman demonstrated this by summoning a teddy bear using an equivalent exchange. The brunette was touched. The flowerer decided to find out what Alterius was doing here. It turned out the reason was that they had found her a groom. She told her father that she agreed to marry the strongest and ran away. This shocked Kana. She did not know what to understand. She thought that Alterius meant the strongest of the knights. Besides this, she is interested in knowing what is happening in the world. If Father Alterius interfered with this matter, people would start to worry. She decided to check if they were involved. After listening, Alterius understood why the elves, beastmen, and dwarves who lived in the lands of humans came to the wolf forest. According to her, Algeria also accepts refugees. The swordsman stated that Algeria was safe because he trained their knights himself. The cat agreed. But she also noted that the neighboring countries had to be taken into account. They couldn't focus on protecting other countries. Otherwise, it would become a show of force, and peaceful relations could be forgotten. Antia was indignant, it seemed to her, that there was sarcasm in Alterius's words. But the cat objected that they did not want to fight. She assured him that she wanted to take revenge on Tommaso. She was sure that she would be useful to him, but at the same time, her people wanted to protect the land and the people without the help of knights. Both sides benefited from weakening the human race. Sonya wondered how they could do that. The cat replied that they had to be destroyed from the inside. Alterius asked Sumeragi a question. He has the ability to summon Bizet, the skill of summoning a spirit. She decided to find out if the swordsman could summon Doppelganger. Tsukuru asked again the name of the spirit. The cat explained that Doppelganger was a spirit monster that stole the essence of its victim and replaced it. Due to its skills, there were almost no records of it. Kana interjected that she had only heard of such creatures in fairy tales and did not think that they actually existed. The swordsman thought that Doppelganger could be used to manipulate important people from a country. In this way, it would be possible to sow discord. Alterius refuted this method, citing that it would be possible to do without unnecessary panic. She replied that they would aim higher and replace the representatives of the countries. Capture them. According to the plan, by the time Tamus gets there, he will be left without a rear. Then the swordsman will be able to take revenge on him. Tsukuru snorted that her plan was abominable. But the cat countered that she was an aristocrat and plots were everything to her. But then again, without the swordsman, the plan would not work unless he could summon the doppelganger. She asked his opinion on the matter. Sumeragi immediately agreed. Miki, who fainted at the sight of Bizet, came to her senses. She was screaming about a monster. Suzuna tried to calm her friend down, explaining that it was Tsukuru's familiar. The brunette's expression became serious. She asked where they were going. Suzune hesitantly suggested that this was another fight. But the swordsman said that they were going to the land of humans. Miki froze. She asked to be left here. Despite the fact that there are artifacts everywhere that scare away monsters, the wolf forest is not safe. Miki trembled. She apologized for being scared. But the thought of something like that happening again made her feel uneasy. Alterius said that the brunette had nothing to apologize for. Miki did the right thing by warning about this right away. The cat suggested that her friends go to Alteria. Their knights would be able to protect them. The brunette immediately agreed that it was worth accepting the offer. But Suzune doubted it. Miki immediately said that Suzune would go with the swordsman and the others. The brunette tried to object, citing the fact that her friend would be left alone. But Miki replied that Suzune had stayed too long. Miki encouraged her friend by saying that the brunette had her healing magic, and they couldn't live without it. She asked Suzune to go with them. But the swordsman intervened with the words that it would be better to think again, because this was a risky business. Suzune looked at her friend, thought for a moment, and replied that she would do her best. The brunette squealed as she rode the monster with Alterius. She had insisted, of course. The swordsman and the others were flying on a magic carpet. Everyone except Sanyu and Tsukuru sympathized with Suzune, but Anthea said that since the brunette wanted to become stronger, she should be able to stand up for herself. The cat cast a spell to summon a sound wave skill, and Suzune summoned a holy spear. While they were flying in free flight, system windows about leveling up kept popping up. The swordsman used the spirit summoning skill. Doppelganger appeared. A stat card floated up next to him. Tsukuru gave him the name Israfil. He gave the order to the spirit to conquer all countries where human supremacy reigns. The swordsman did not want to spare anyone, because they all despised him. He thought of what Alterius had said when she said that if they captured one gate, they could capture the rest of the countries, and thus take control. The swordsman could not have imagined that the gate would be useful. He noted that the cat was smart and prudent. He cherished the thought of revenge on Timas. Bizet appeared. He reported that he had found Suzuna's classmates. Someone had survived. However, words were heard behind them that the city would become a camp of heroes. Someone ordered them to lie down. The classmates began to rebel because they believed that the people of this world had summoned them on a whim. They refused to be cannon fodder. Now it was the turn of the inhabitants to do whatever they, the heroes, wanted. The swordsman completely disagreed with their rebellion, but he understood their feelings perfectly. Bizet waited for the order. The swordsman ordered to leave them alone. It would be problematic if a fight broke out and Tamasu found out about it. He warned the ghost not to tell Suzune and Miki about the meeting, and ordered to continue the investigation. Meanwhile, Miki was visiting Alteria and took up the litter. To this, the maid excitedly asked her not to do such things because she was a guest. The brown-haired girl thought about how her friend was doing. Meanwhile, the brunette was recovering from riding the monster. She noted that training in Luke Sandal was much easier, but Alterius assured her that every knight had to go through this. Hannah appreciated the work. The cat and the brunette got cards with characteristics. They achieved their goal. The girls were happy with their success. At that moment, the swordsman appeared and discovered that the training was over. The excited brunette did not know what to say to him, and the cat decided to clarify what to do next. Sonia screamed that she needed to eat something tasty. Suzuna was touched by the opportunity to eat sushi in this world. The swordsman said that he was at the port and bought fresh seafood. Meanwhile, a notification about skill increase popped up in front of the brunette's eyes. As she explained, it was due to the skill of cooking. She could learn skills by eating monster meat. Sonia strictly ordered that Alterius and Suzune eat everything. Kana also wished them a pleasant appetite. Tsukuru had no idea that so many people would eat the food he had prepared. At that moment, Suzune said that it was very nostalgic and that she wanted to return to her parents as soon as possible. The swordsman immediately remembered the conversation with the deity, where she spoke about the erased birth records of the abducted people. But he could not tell her such terrible news. Bizet continued his investigation, which led him to a deserted area. A figure appeared before him. The swordsman felt that something had happened to the ghost. Everyone turned to look at him. He said that something happened to Bizet. They swam to the deserted area where Bizet was. They arrived in a land that wasn't on the map. The land of death. Only ghosts could live there. Kana asked if Bizet was really there. The swordsman replied that he could feel his presence. He pointed in the direction and rushed there. He drew his katana and cut through the air. Ghosts came out from everywhere. Sonia declared that she would deal with them, but the she-wolf failed to defeat the ghosts. "You can't kill what is already dead," as Antia said. Suzuna used holy magic, and the ghosts stopped approaching them. They seemed to be in a boulder-strewn area. Here, Sumeragi lost track of Bizet's presence. There were stone monuments in front of them. Sonia assumed it might be a treasure map. The elf tried to calm the wolf down, but the beastman noticed something. After reading the writing, Suzune said that it was in Japanese. The other girls wondered if this was the language from the swordsman's original world, but the inscription caused confusion in Brunette and Sumeragi. The others did not understand the confusion of the former. A discussion about the inscription began. They wondered who had engraved the name of the dish and why. Kana asked what kind of food it was. The swordsman replied that he would make it for her next time. Sonia was confused. Alterius pitied the poor thing, who was apparently hungry. Antia said that there was no point in discussing something they didn't know. Tsukuru agreed and suggested looking for Bizet. A Cerberus crept up to them. A window of characteristics popped up next to him. He asked who had invaded his master's lands. Everyone looked at the three-headed dog. The swordsman snorted that they were being given a warm welcome. The dog barked and threatened to eliminate the intruders. He released streams of energy from his mouth. A column of dust rose. Hannah decided to attack. She dealt blow after blow, and the dog could not track her maneuvers. Cerberus called Hannah an impudent cur, but she denied his words that she was a wolf before the very last attack. The dog was knocked out, and Alterius praised the she-wolf. It was then that the dog began to crumble, and Bizet appeared in that place. Kana and Suzune were happy to see him, but Sumeragi stopped them. There was something wrong with him. Ghost crows came to his call. Everyone dodged them. Bizet attacked the swordsman. In the fight, the swordsman asked Bizet if he thought he could win, but the ghost asked him to leave. Bizet threw Sumeragi away. Antia said that she would stop him, and the swordsman himself should go forward. There was a fortress ahead. The elf said that she knew who controlled the ghost. She knows who is beyond this place. The swordsman has already penetrated the fortress. He cut the space with his katana, but the darkness stopped her. The swordsman noticed that he could not free his blade from the black fog. He began to understand what this place and presence was. The undead rushed at him. He cut them apart, but the katana was again in the grip of the black fog. Someone called the swordsman by name. A dark figure appeared before Sumeragi, threatening to destroy all armies beyond this world. The ghost said he was surprised that his brethren had caused a stir. This time, a single human child had appeared.